So we are starting with national anthem. Please, I want to create your indulgence. We take the first stanza of the national anthem, sing it, we sing it. The second stanza will be adopted, will be recited as opening prayer. Then we'll take the pledge. So that will take care of the opening prayer. So today is going to be a great day, epoch in event, a memorable one. If you know that, please shall please stand up on our feet as we take the national anthem. So we take the second stanza, recite as the opening prayer. So we have it in the manual. So 1, 2, let's go. God of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youth and truth to grow, in love and honesty to grow, and living just and truth. Pray God to the eyes and faith, to build a nation where peace and righteousness reign. Say amen. Amen. Somebody say, God bless Nigeria. God bless Nigeria. God bless the Hospital. God bless Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria. God bless Association of Psychiatrists. And the last one, God bless Essence Pharmaceutical Companies. God bless Essence Pharmaceutical Companies. And then better amen. Amen. So let's take the national pledge before we sit down. I pledge to Nigeria, my country, to be faithful, loyal, and honest. Nigeria, to defend our unity and uphold our moral glory. Pray God will help us as a country. Okay, before we sit down, I've been just reminded that I don't want the estate. I know some people don't understand Yoruba. You can look at Yoruba speaking neighbor and ask him what's the meaning of that. He may be saying, are you speaking in Chinese or which language are you speaking? You know I know a bit of Chinese, but they are here for serious business. Don't let me go to that this morning. So distinguished ladies and gentlemen, once again it's a pleasure to have all of us at this gathering. Like the former chairman of the NMA State said earlier, it's the second edition that is happening in the rough city of Abeokuta, in the cradle of psychiatry, where it all started from 1944 as an asylum. So you can enjoy yourself. So we go straight to the next item on the agenda. That will be the introduction of dignitaries. We have them in timber and cardinals here. So I'm not the one that will be. The weather is also favorable, and the condition here is also good to go with. So put together as a welcome. Dr. is one of our proud products in Aaron, Dr. Olajide, to do some of the introduction. A round of applause for him.
So without wasting time, I would like to recognize my boss, my president, the #1 psychiatrist in Nigeria, the person of Professor Taiwo James Obido. Please come to the item, sir. Please let's clap for him. me also recognize the presence of the immediate past president of the Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria, the person of Professor Taiwo Lateef Sheyi. We also have here the immediate past Secretary General, the person I took mantle from, the person of Dr. Joyce Omo Areva. Still within the circle of the APN executive, we have the Assistant Secretary General, the person of Dr. Asmau Dairu, all the way from Maiduguri. You can see that APN is gender sensitive. We are gender balanced. The APN treasurer, the money bank, and I think the chief security officer should give him maximum protection. The person of Dr. Blessing Ute from Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Benin City. I also have amongst the APN executive the public relations officer of the association, the person of Dr. N.O.K. Obayi, all the way from Enugu. You can see he's already doing his job. Thank you very much. Still on the protocol list, we are bringing to the high table the chief host of today's event, the person who has made us together in this auditorium to have this workshop, the number one doctor in Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, the person who has gathered all of us together, the person of Dr. Paul Afis Akwane Agbola. Please let's clap for him. Is ably supported in the running of the hospital by some directors. We have in our midst the head of admin of this institution, Mr. Fadero. Also supporting our provost, we have the head of clinical services, and that person also doubles as the chairman of this local organizing committee, the person of Dr. Oluyinka Majekotomi. We also have the head of research and training of this institution. The top management committee of the hospital is also gender sensitive. And we have our mommy, the head of nursing of this institution, Alaja Majolage. Please, special clap for her. Still on the recognition of our dignitaries, there is somebody that I think I need to specially recognize. He's somebody that grew me. I grew up in his hand when I started my medical career. And he wanted me to be an orthopedic.
All of us are very important at this gathering. So please celebrate yourself for being here this morning. You can do it better now. Thank you so much. So let me also celebrate, because of time, brevity of time, let me also introduce all our deputy directors that are present here. We celebrate you. Thank you for coming. all the staff directors, all the heads of departments, head of units, all the ward managers, and our post-basic students from school of nursing. You're all welcome. I know very soon celebration is done here now. We'll be doing 7th combined convocation ceremony. It's going to be very beautiful. And before I go to the next item, I need to introduce all the directors. Let me introduce the director of pharmacy here present. Please together and welcome Dr. Mrs. Amao. We celebrate you now. Thanks for coming. The director of finance, Mrs. Ejije, here you go. Part of the TMC, okay, even essential, we welcome you. Please, someone I need to welcome us to mention her name. Is the constant in charge of this place. She's our host. So if you didn't introduce her, probably next time she may not allow us to enter into this place. So she's also a member of the local organizing committee of this great event. So please put together as a welcome. Dr. Mrs. Adefolakemi Mudele. 2 of days ago we had a Friday event, Workers' Day, and it was a memorable one. And some of us are here, you agree with that, we enjoyed the event, yes or no? Yeah. It was a great one. So we are waiting for this year. You must have been I know the people is also here. Thank you so much. Okay. Representing the Attorney General of the State, we have in our midst, as representing the Attorney General, Mr. Ubade, or every represented by Uluwamu Yuba Obuso, Director, Commission Service, Ministry of Justice. It's a pleasure to have you present to this side of the divide. Thank you so much for coming. So the last 3 people have come together, they'll be duly recognized. We are still gathering the names. So just say for Maseku, don't worry, we'll get to you in the grand style. You'll be duly introduced. For the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, you're all welcome. So move straight to the next thing on the agenda, which is the welcome address from the numeral owner of this great institution. Man has been doing wonders, moving things, not only the contact special, Ridwan, is a scholar, a man of many parts. He has been developing the hospital both at the main complex at Aro and this annex. If your hand is not busy, put it together as a welcome for his welcome address, Dr. Paul. Please celebrate him, celebrate him.
Let somebody shout hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
That's right. Because I'm a redeemer. So anywhere I go, I always praise God first. Yes, the chairman or the co-chair of this occasion, the Honorable Attorney General of States, represented by the director, of course the representative of the Commissioner for Health is on his way. My able leader, Professor Bino, our important dignitaries seated here, those that travel far and near, say good morning. And I want to appreciate God for granting you safe trip down to Abeokuta, the rock city. Now, the event of today is a milestone. Milestone in the sense that we are here discussing about the new mental health act law that was passed by the former administration of this country. we're discussing this act because before this act was passed, most of the time, or before now, we've been treating our patients with the old Lunacy Act of the colonial era. But thank God that we have people in authority and finally been listening to the prayers of the professionals in this field. When this act was passed into law, I sent a copy to the Honorable Commissioner for Health of the state. Unfortunately, she is in Abuja, and I'm sure that they're going to send a message to her that there's a need for the state to take ownership of this act, even if it means the state investigating this. And there is no other way to do it than getting the Attorney General of the state seated here too, because it is the state, of course, in the state, the state assembly are responsible for the passage of the law. But then they can't do that without the input from the State Minister of Justice. And that's why we are having the two of them as the co-chair. Commissioner for Health of the state and Commissioner for Justice. However, I must express their apology for not being here because the Commissioner for Health, she's in Abuja. She was summoned to Abuja yesterday night. And the Commissioner for Justice, the state government are currently doing a 1 year anniversary program. So is somewhere trying to do a scorecard of the state. But thank God that they are ably represented by the competent directors. We cannot talk about this meeting without appreciating the efforts of the Nigerian Association of Psychiatrists. We have both current chairman, current president and former president seated here. And what is of note is the role played by the Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria. They toiled day and night for years, before the act itself was passed into law, or the bill was passed into law. And worthy of mention is the role played by Senator Oloyegbe and for in the National Assembly, both in the House of Reps and the and the Senate. Without the similar acts of these people, we will be still treating our patients using the old colonial law. Now, this meeting is co-sponsored by a company that has identified with people with mental illness for years. In the early 50s, a company called Yancy Silak, they discovered the impact of some antipsychotic medications like the alloperidol and what have you. They have been able to provide support both in terms of funding for research in mental health and also doing some innovative medication that is easily administered and tolerated by our patients. They support high quality medical education, which is part of what we are doing right now, with accurate, up-to-date, reliable information that will make us, the stakeholders, to take and make an informed decision. Now, this meeting that we are having here is a follow-up of the one that was held in Kaduna. But of recent, and well of note, is the colloquium that was organized by Nigerians, Muslims in diaspora, in conjunction with the hospital, that is New Psychiatric Hospital, Abeokuta, and some other people. That was about 2 weeks ago, or thereabouts, on the 11th of May. In that colloquium, though it was an online colloquium, we asked some of the participants as resource people in that colloquium seated right now. I want to appreciate the effort of Dr. Adeoye. Please, can you stand up for recognition? In that same colloquium, we have the Nigerian Bar Association President presenting. The Chairman, Police Service Commission was there, live and direct. The Minister of Health was represented by the Director of Hospital Services, and we have the ministerial present. Even the Dr. Ojo Ferguson, who is the National Mental Health Coordinator in Ministry of Health, was also present, and I believe is also in this hall to share with us the plan or what the ministry has been doing. Now, what we are expecting to take home from this gathering this morning are several things. One, we want to know what the role of the ministry, both the state and the federal ministry, the role they are playing in the implementation of the new act in the country. And how does the ministry ensure that the mental health services are delivered in accordance to the law? Of course, part of the recommendation of the online colloquium that we had some few days back was the inability of the Federal Ministry of Health to have a functioning Department of Mental Health in the ministry. Of course, and I believe that such recommendation will also reverberate even in our gathering this morning. We want to know what is the role of the ministry, both in the states and the federal, in ensuring that mental health facilities are registered within the states, the local government, and the national. I'm sure you are aware of what happened in our hospital last week, where as a result of, see, we are proud to be a first respondent in case of medical or psychiatric emergencies. But a situation where, in the act of carrying out our duty, we were assaulted by the people that are supposed to understand that we care for them. And people say, well, it is part of the hazard that you are supposed to face. Of course, we know. But are the facilities or the environment conducive for that? Well, that discussion is left for another day. But it's a reminder of the problems that we mental health professionals faces in the act of discharging our duties. You see, we also have to, from this discussion, want to know whether the state government will take the bull by the horn and see how they can domesticate this law in the state level. And from what I said, when this act came into operation, had a meeting with the paramount ruler of the state, had a meeting with the Elake of Egbaland, the Lowo of Owu, Oshiele of Okeono, and other paramount rulers in Yewas and the Ijebu zone. And the reason was this: before now, Our hospital has been involved in the primary mental health service delivery, first of its kind in the that neuropsychiatric hospital Awa will ensure that the communique arising from this meeting got to the necessary people. Now, if you look at the brochure in our presence or in front of us, the communique will be sent to the Ministry of Health. The communique will be sent to the governor of the state, and the communique will also be sent to the National Assembly. Incidentally, the chairperson on the Senate Committee on Health, she is a doctor, and she had her psychiatric posting in Arrow. She was here last week, and she expressed her desire to help the hospital and help psychiatric hospitals generally, because she has the passion to help the less privileged in the community. So the community will also be given to her, because I told her about this meeting, and she said she's looking forward to receiving the community. You know, in the colloquium that we did a few days ago, the former chairman committee on health in Senate, Senator Olorebe, that spearheaded the passage of this law, gave us ways in which we will ensure that governments at both state and federal level comply with this, because it's a law. It's a law, it's a legal document that we can ensure that the government of the day, both in the federal level and the state, comply with it. And the Nigeria Bar Association, NBA National President, promised to partner with the APN to ensure that the needful is done. So I wish us a fruitful deliberation. The program is going to be in different sessions. And of course, sit back, relax, and God bless you. Thank you.
A round of applause once again for the provost and the director for that welcome address. Thank you so much, sir. So without much ado, we'll set the ball rolling further by doing some notable recognition. Please, it's my pleasure to invite to this side of the divide the Honorable Chief Judge of Ogun State, Honorable Justice Emily Dipel, ably represented by Mr. O.L.K., Deputy Chief Registrar, Admin, High Court of Ogun State. Let's celebrate him, please. Put together for Mr. O.L.K. You're welcome. Usher, where are you? Please do your job. Please, please, please. And also we have, we are standing with 3 legs, tripod. We have duly recognized Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria. We have duly recognized the eggs in the hospital. And the last leg is Jensen, Ensign Pharmaceutical, I have the country manager. She's a woman of substance. Like someone said, if you want to know a woman very well, you know about 4 things. Number 1 is C. You must care for a woman. The next one is A. You must pay attention. The next one is S. You must support a woman. And the last one is H. Honesty. So put those 4 together. What does it mean? What does it mean? I'm not saying that women love cash. I'm not saying that. Don't go to that one, it's off record. It's my pleasure to welcome to the high table the country representative, Nigerian and Ghana, Nkechi. Sorry, I didn't know Ekpai. Did I get the name of the celebrator? Where is the country representative? Madam Nkechi, where are you?
Okay. So also we have joining Mr. Femi Ogubede. Ogubede, let's celebrate it. It's a coordinator also. It's a pleasure to have you, madam. You're welcome. I was item on the agenda, which is message from Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria. We have 2 Taiwos in the house. When Taiwo was going out, he handed over to another Taiwo. He didn't get that. The former president of Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria, one of his name Taiwo, and the current one also Taiwo. It's my pleasure to bring to the podium Dr. Taiwo Obinu, the president, Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria. Let's celebrate it. It's a very good one.
We're still in the morning. Good morning, everybody. Many people who know me will know that I often will not want to stand on the existing protocol. I would rather prefer to align myself with already established protocol. We need to allow the protocol to breathe. So let the protocol breathe. But I recognize as many as are here, the consultants, the mentioned, the people from the Federal Ministry of Justice, Federal Ministry of Health, all the people that have been mentioned, and more importantly, provosts who have done marvelously well in telling us about this Mental Health Act. Janssen, I need to pronounce it well, Janssen Pharmaceutical of Johnson & Johnson. We also appreciate it. My immediate past president, I can but always acknowledge your presence and the power that you used in pushing for this act to be ascended to. 2 major actors, both in the Federal House of Representatives and then the Senate, also need to be recognized. Dr. Sumunu, and more importantly, Dr. Oloriegbe, who is still interested in making sure that this happens. We all will agree that this act is already a law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and therefore we need to implement it, and it's already existing. So there's nothing else to do but to insist that it's already binding, it's already established, and it's binding on all of us, whether you know it or not. Ignorance is not an excuse in law, according to the lawyers that are around. So if it's been established, if it's been gazetted, then we need to make sure that it's implemented. If there's going to be any other thing, it will be maybe an amendment, or maybe they go and repeal that particular law. But as it stands today, is the law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and we need to implement it. Maybe a little historical background. The Lunacy Act, which was dictated unto us by our colonial masters, which we continue to use until 1958 when it became a law in the country, remained the major law. And the way that law was casted actually looked at people who are mentally ill as some people that needed to be taken away from the normal people. And as it was, more or less, keep them away, and then far away from others who are living well, without any form of attention at all. Even the word things that were used were quite derogatory and stigmatizing. And that was why efforts started right from 1999 when Senator Martins Yellow
started to push for us to have a mental health. And you can imagine, over 30 years, Nigerians or our leaders never saw the need for a more humane mental health act or law to help with the management and the right, in particular, the right of those who have mental health challenges. And that is one of the major things that we have in the Mental Health Act, that the rights of those who have mental health conditions are well taken care of. Because somebody is ill does not mean that the person cannot function. I've had instances where people who are mentally ill were treated and they went back into the community and they are able to offer their own help in moving on. Many, I won't need to mention names, are commissioners presently. Many are lawyers, attorney general of a particular state, the one government of the other, are being treated and they've done very well. So why should we neglect this particular set of people? In fact, at the point, those who are, establishment of mental health facilities are often, I'm sure when they started their habit, they had to throw stone to make sure that they are far away from the people. And that tells a lot about the attitude of people to mental health and those who have mental health conditions. I won't bore us with so much stories, but why are we here today? Why sensitize the community? I mentioned something earlier on that is a law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and ignorance of it is not an excuse. We, as medical or mental health practitioners, whether you are a doctor, a psychiatrist, you are a clinical psychologist, you are occupational therapy, social health workers, and all, you need to know about the Act. And that's one of the reasons why we're here today, to sensitize you, to give you awareness about what the law entails, so that you don't run foul of the law. Also, those who have mental health challenges, maybe in the past, it was said that at least 1 in 4 Nigerians, in the course of their lifetime, will have one form of mental illness or the other. Apology to the politicians. If you make the prison a good place to live in, by the time you are leaving the office, if they say you should go there, you will know that you are going to that place. If we know that we all, I tell people, if you have brain, you are at risk of developing a mental health condition. Just like somebody with a womb, with uterus, is at risk of developing cancer of the uterus. If the womb is not there, even if somebody decides that they will curse me and say, you will have cancer of the ovary, I will just laugh and walk away. Because I don't have ovary, I don't have uterus. So it's not likely to happen. But so far we have brain, the likelihood is there. So we must take care of those who have mental health condition and then make the environment more suitable. And that's why the right of those who have mental health condition and those who lead the experience should also know their rights. And then people can demand for their rights. Also, part of why we're here is to know how far so far. Introduction was made that the first one was held in Kaduna. So between Kaduna, which was last year, and now, how far have we moved? What has taken place? Somebody mentioned the colloquium that took place a couple of weeks ago, where the Ministry of Health, Federal Ministry of Health came around, and then we are talking about having a mental health desk, which we have gone past. And I believe that the Federal Ministry of Health, if we cannot make them do it from the inside, the outcome of that program is that we can actually push them from outside. If we all, the lawyers, the doctors, the people with lived experience, the CSOs and non-governmental organizations and all can insist making sure that this act is implemented. They don't have a choice. And like we heard in that colloquium, if diplomacy will not work, then we can go bigger. That they can actually be sued to make sure that that is done. And that's a live with us. So the need to also domesticate this. I think the provost also mentioned the fact that effort is being made in Ogun State to do that. Probably 2 or 3 states have a mental health act presently. But it's something that we need to have all over the states of the Federation. I was discussing with my immediate pastor, and he was saying that if the Federal Ministry of Health is reluctant in implementing both the spirit and the law of that particular act, how can we push the states? But the good news is that if you are ahead of them, please go ahead. I could say that Plateau State, we are making effort, and I'm sure very soon we will have it. Cross River has also documented something, which is with the State House of Assembly, and I'm sure some other states are making effort also to make sure that this is done. So one of the reasons we're here is that we should also know what is in the act. This is being built all over the country and by Zoom, and I'm sure those in other centers will also take a cue from what is being done here. And I believe that it is going to be a wonderful. Looking at the colors, I am quite impressed. Looking at the arrays of those who are here, I am actually very, very impressed, and I know that we will have a wonderful time. So I appreciate everyone that is here, and I wish also a very wonderful and excellent workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Let's celebrate it, let's celebrate it. Thank you so much, sir. That was a brilliant message from the President. Thank you so much, sir. Still on the note of introduction, that was a big omission. The members of the 4 states of the realm are here in their large number. The journalists, not the lazy ones. And the diligent and the upright and those with integrity are here. Let's celebrate all the members of the 4 states of the realm. Please, from Punch, Media Links, TVC, channels, we celebrate you. Celebrate them. They have a major role to play, like we learned in the online colloquium, in the implementation of the Mental Health Act. They have a big role in education. They do education, information, and entertainment. So they have a key role to play. Celebrate the media once again. I mean the music, so whenever we celebrate all that, so that they will not put us in the spotlight. Also, we have in our midst this morning a fine gentleman, Dr. Festus Adetowa, General Secretary, Nigerian Medical Association. It's a pleasure to have you. The engine of the association. Welcome. Also, while the President was giving his message, the Commissioner for Health in Ogun State, Dr. Tomi Koka, ably represented by the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health, Dr. Kayode Aladele. Please, it's a pleasure to have you. Let's usher you behind you. Thank you so much. Still clapping now. Still thank you so much. And we have a legal juggernaut, if I can use that word. A legal millionaire. My time is starting here, those big one. A legal, oh yeah, which one? Abyssinian. Which one should I use again? Esquire. I don't want to be Obaidon of those states. Oh, I don't know here. Sorry. It's a pleasure to have Dr. Motiwa Gogi, President, Electoral Commissioner from Osun State. A teacher of law. It's a pleasure to have you in our midst this morning. So please, as we move ahead, okay. So this program is an hybrid one, not just physical. We have people online. So those from the online community, it's a pleasure to have you. We have Professor Bashir, Adam Nakasai, Dr. Yelisi Inyamali, Dr. Kiyomi, former provost and medical of this institution, Ufuari, Ike, Korode, Africa. It's a pleasure. Online community, it's a pleasure to have you. Though you are saying us, we are not seeing you. We just say hi to them. Let's say hi to them. You are not saying say hi. So thank you so much. So we'll move to the next thing that we have on the agenda, which is chairman's opening remark. We have two in that capacity, but we allow they are all gentlemen today, not ladies. So let's welcome for the chairman's opening remarks. We have two of them. I'm starting with the Commissioner for Justice, ably represented by Mr. Olumuyiwa Olusowo, Director of Commissioner Services, Ministry of Justice. Father, put together for you. As it comes, the chairman's.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Like the president of the APN has mentioned, that we should allow the protocol to read. Just permit me to also align with the already established protocol. Before coming down, I had to take permission from my peers, the chairman, who is actually the chairman of this occasion, representing the Commissioner for Health, Dr. Aibu, and he has given me the go-ahead as the co-chair to deliver the remark of the Honorable Attorney General. I'm here representing the Attorney General of the State and Commissioner for Justice, Mr. Oluwashina Ogungbade. He has asked me to specially tender his unreserved apology. He would have loved to be here, but for state emergencies that he has to attend to. He has sent his warm greeting to everyone, and then he wished us fruitful deliberation as we proceed in this sensitization activities. And he has asked me to specially thank everyone that are present here. Meanwhile, in the meantime, I also want to, I just need to also recognize the former head of service, Dr. Nofi Arigoro. I understand is there. Please permit me to, I must not fail to recognize him. So that's why I have to. And it's expected of me to recognize my boss anywhere I see them. Well, on that note, I wish us a fruitful celebration. Thank you.
Thank you for that short opening remarks. So move straight without stopping. Let me also welcome the co-chair, the Commissioner for Health, ably represented by Dr. Oluka Oladende for his chairman opening remarks. If your hand is not busy, clap as it comes.
Thank you very much. Once again, I welcome all of us to this very important workshop. The Honorable Commissioner for Health, who would have loved to be here this morning, has some other state assignments outside the state. She's present in a wonderful time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. You're welcome. Round of applause for the Thank you. So move straight. Also, the next thing we have the National Mental Health Act 2021 has been passed, assented by the President of the nation, and there is someone that will do the overview of this act. It's one of our own, the constant psychiatrist, put together as a welcome Dr. Yese Karim. A round of applause for him.
Progress by Medical Director, APN President, and other protocols duly observed. You have to say time. Good morning, everybody. So I'll be presenting just an overview of the acts of which we are going to discuss today. So and I will talk very briefly so as to give chance for the panel discussions to commence. So I will talk briefly on this outline. Next slide, please. So the state of mental health in Nigeria, the historical perspectives, and then the legal process of achieving these acts, and what are the parts of this act, and what are the matters arising, and what are part of the implementation. Next slide. So the first question is, why do we need a national mental health act? It's actually prejudiced by the current state of mental health in Nigeria. So we realize that about 20% of Nigerians, that's about 40 million, would have a mental illness at one point in time or the other. So you can see 1 in 5 of Nigerians are at risk of mental illness. Like my president has said, once somebody has a brain, the person is at risk of having a mental illness. And Nigeria happens to have the largest burden of depression in Africa and the 15th country in the world with suicide, with about 7,019 suicidal cases recorded in Nigeria on an annual basis. And despite the fact that these bodies are large, we realize that just about 10% of Nigerians actually have the access to access the mental health services, leaving about 80 to 85% having a low access or no access at all. And also, despite the treatment gap, it is interesting to learn that only about 4% of our GDP goes to health, and out of this, just about 3% goes to mental health. So you can see that Nigeria is largely lacking with a lot of data to support that there is a need to actually have an intervention for this particular current mental state. And lastly, despite all these burdens and statistics, just about 300 psychiatrists are available in Nigeria, or even less. So we can say that for every 1 million Nigerian, we have just a psychiatrist to take care of that person. So which means that even if all these statistics are available, the mental health workforce, and this cuts across all specialties, the psychiatric nurses, the social workers, psychologists, we are all in very low population here. And unfortunately, this low population is still being drained to other parts of the world by the common concept of Japa syndrome. And in fact, about 7 out of every 10 Nigerian doctors today have an intention of trying to travel out. So this calls for a need to have a mental health act that will address these burdens, provide mental health services and facilities, and of course stop discrimination and improve on the funding. So next slide. So this is the latest World Mental Health report that was released last year, and shows that mental illness is actually widespread. About 1 in 8 of people in the world have mental illness, close to that in Nigeria, and about 71% do not have treatment. Nigeria is about 80%, and of course, just about 2% funding is available mental health like we have. So it's actually a global problem, but we are in Nigeria, we must talk about our interests as Nigerians. So historically, this has been mentioned. It started from the Lunacy Act, which started as early as Next slide, please. Started at Lunacy Ordinance from 1916 up to what we have as the Lunacy Act, and then up to last year we were actually operating the Lunacy Act that was as old as possible. So next slide, please. So we must commend the efforts of all stakeholders who are putting different effort as ensuring that we have an act. It's been a very long journey, right from the 5th National Assembly up to the 9th National Assembly. At one point in time or the other, people have come forward to see how to put forward an act. The first attempt at having this bill was actually brought in 2003 by Senator Ibiwari. This was actually the former medical director of the Rivers Psychiatric Hospital. When he got to the Senate, he had seen what was being noticed in the mental health hospitals. So one of his ideas in the Senate then was to propose having this mental health bill, and we can see the titles are shown here. Of course, this bill was read and adopted by the Senate, and unfortunately, in the 6th Assembly, the mover had already died in 2006, 2009, and other technicalities. This bill could not sail through and was withdrawn in the 6th Assembly. Of course, in the 7th Assembly, another effort came, and this time around was coming from the House of Rep. And 2 members of the House from Agege and Alimosho respectively also introduced another bill in order to ensure for national policy service delivery. Of course, it was when the 7th Assembly, it was considered, and without a public hearing that was announced, but it was never held. So in the 8th Assembly, this bill also was withdrawn, and the one that became successful was the 3rd attempt by Senator Olori Egbe, which started in 2019, and it was during the regime of Professor Lateef Sheikh, who was an affiliate to Professor Olori Egbe, and the movement to have a bill started. And in 2019, that bill was able to come up, and it was this particular bill that eventually marginalized what we have today as an act. So, next slide. So this is just the bill. I won't waste time. This was the bill title there. Of course, by the time the act was coming up, some things have actually changed in the bill. But essentially, most of our concerns are still being addressed in the act. Next slide. So the bill, like I said, it was first presented by Olori Egbe in the Senate in 2019, and it went through all the legislative processes, the first reading, second reading, the public hearing, and all that. And eventually, it was finally assented by the last state government in 2022, and it was gazetted in January 2023 into what we have today as a National Mental Health Act. This particular slide just shows us the schedule of the act and the dates that I mentioned when it was gazetted and signed by the president. Next slide. So this is the National Mental Health Act that we have today that was enacted last year. So the next slide. This act, very colorful, it has 5 parts. It's 35 pages with 58 sections and several subsections. And it has a particular schedule that talks about what are the position of some of these parts. So I believe in the course of these panel sessions, we are going to have these parts discussed. I would not want to go over them for the purpose of time. The next slide, please. What are things that are important for us to learn? One of the things that we should learn is that there are some key definitions of terms in this particular act that will tell us who particularly is a patient. What does this act define as a mental health condition? What are the conditions that can make somebody need an admission and all that? About 21 of these definitions have been positioned as the 58th section of this act. Why is it important for us is that because of the technicality of this act, there might be issues for us of concern to manage, and we must understand what entails all these key definitions. I just put forward some that I think may be important. The first one is what is the constituent of a mental health condition, not as what we have understood it, but it would mean an impairment or limitation or restriction that arises from a mental disorder which involves significant changes in thinking, emotion and behavior, and can cause distress or problems, interaction between individuals and environment, and include 3 things: intellectual disability, social disability, and cognitive disability. So according to this act, these are what are being described as mental health condition, and they also describe what could entail what we call a psychiatric emergency. Why is this important? When we go to the act, we realize that the way we manage an emergency is not at times to be able to identify and recognize what will constitute an emergency as mental health professionals, so that we are able to follow through what this actually describes as an emergency. So the next slide. So the other part of this slide, which I think also important to understand, is what is called a mental health facility. We would realize when I was presenting earlier that Nigeria has a treatment gap of about 80%, which means that only about 10-15% can actually access mental health care. One of the reasons for this is that in terms of facility, we are not there. I can tell you that in Ogun State today, Arrow is practically the center that receives all psychiatric patients, essentially. And it's not even in Ogun State, what I call the southwestern Nigeria, and even neighboring countries like the Republic and all that. And I've said that we have only about 50% of doctors that are available. So we are losing the number, and then we are having more burden and with lesser facilities. So the Mental Health Act has actually done justice in describing what constitutes a facility, and it is described as a public or a private establishment, institution, building for where persons receive mental health care, treatment, rehabilitation services, diagnostic and therapeutic intervention, or other health services, which would include but is not limited to clinics, hospitals, psychiatric hospitals, community health centers, rehab centers, even faith-based institutions, and even traditional centers. which provide mental health care services or treatment for persons with mental health conditions, which means that the act has told us that facility goes beyond just what our hospitals are, which means in trying to bring this act into context, we have to make sure that other facilities also work so that we can improve the access of people that have mental illnesses. And of course, the act also describes to us what is called a place of safety. We have always believed before that place of safety is limited to just maybe the prison or the police cell. But in this act now, any shelter that is run by the government or an NGO and is accredited that provides support and accommodation for individuals with mental conditions can serve as a place of safety. So we don't always have to look for a prison or a police cell to serve as a place of safety for people that have mental health conditions. And lastly, who is a patient? This is a very contentious issue that who is actually a patient? Like as we described earlier, for a mental health condition, any human being that receives or utilizes mental health care and treatment from a mental health facility or clinic is regarded as a patient according to this mental health act. So the next slide. Now, one important part of this act, which I want to probably land up with, is the issue of capacity and incapacity. We will realize that in the act, we talk about voluntary admission, involuntary admission, and all that, which involves when people having a capacity to make decisions or not. So this act has technically defined to us when somebody does not have a mental or a psychological capacity. It has to do with understanding information, processing that information, and understanding that treatment might benefit, and then be able to communicate those. If somebody cannot get this particular condition, that person may be adjusted possibly to be mentally or psychologically incapacitated. So the next slide, I want to probably end these definitions with what do we call a legal representative. Before, we are used to saying patient relative. But in this particular act now, it is now put in the context of who can actually represent a patient who does not have the capacity. And this has been defined in this act. And I would also like to mention the part you mentioned. It starts from a spouse. So in this act, if somebody is having a mental illness and needs somebody to take about that person, the first person that should be reckoned with is the spouse. Maybe they need a medical report, maybe need other issues, or need to make a decision for treatment. The spouse is who the mental health act recognizes as the first cadre of legal representative for a patient, then followed by the son or the daughter who are above the age of 18 years, and of course either parents of the individual. And in absence of these ones, then a court may then appoint somebody to be a representative for this particular patient. So in other words, not just anybody can come to us and lay claim to having a patient as a relative or this. We must ensure that we actually understand this particular theology before we go in and take others. We see people come to make people ask for medical report, asking for discharge of patient who are not even related in any of these particular. So this act has come to help us to define who can actually be a patient legally. And a very important issue is who is a mental health worker, a mental health professional. Now it's important to know that the mental health workforce professionally, the psychiatrists, psychologists, nurses, social workers, and those cannot actually manage mental health conditions all alone. That's why at this setting we have a spiritual worker, traditional worker, and like I mentioned in the facilities earlier, they also have some roles to play. So we have two categories of people that work in mental health professionals. Who are those that have been trained and certified to practice psychiatry? Certification will mean ways of qualifying specialists through requirements and examination by the board of medical specialty to appoint or elect that person for the purpose of registering for medical specialty. So like now, we have our own national college, West Africa. Those are boards that can certify people to practice. They have in nursing, psychology, and all that. So when we have mental health professionals, one of our duties is to also train people who will serve as mental health workers. They will not be certified like us, but they can also provide some little mental health services in order to show these step down purposes. So a mental health worker is defined as a trained volunteer and advocate that engages in mental health promotion and services under the supervision of a mental health professional. But today we go to the town, we see that many people that practice mental health services are actually more mental health workers than even the mental health professionals. So the next slide. So lastly, so what is now the path towards implementation? I believe that this particular workshop is going to address this and many others. the first thing we have to ensure is education, which is part of what this law will do to ensure. So I know that in the curricula of the medical health training now, the Mental Health Act has now formed part of the curricula, and they even ask it in the exams. So I think all of that profession as well, the nurses, psychologists, also include Mental Health Act as an education tool and document for our own students, so that we are all accustomed with what are the content and the expectations of the act. During the last colloquium, the NBA president, Dr. Buminke, as I mentioned that they are going to introduce the Mental Health Act now into the School of Law, so that people that come as lawyers, part of what they will study as a course is a course that's called Mental Health Act, because education is actually the most important. And interestingly, journalists, the media, and bloggers are already reading this act and trying to see where they can look at loopholes where they are going to come out and attack people and questioners. So if we do not have a good grasp of this knowledge, then people are reading it for us and are trying to see where they can fit us. So also then of course there should be issue of developing the mental health committee that we mentioned, and this department from Ministry of Health needs to be established so as to put in all these loopholes. And of course, lastly, it's important to also be able to domesticate particular acts, not only at the state level, even at the local government level, so that at every institution, this particular act can be into use. So I want to conclude by welcoming us again to this mental health workshop. I want to believe that this particular has given us an idea of what the act is, and I realize the session that will come, we'll get more about the act. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ali.
Thank you so much, Dr. Karim. Let's celebrate it. That's a great one. Wonderful well-being. And the most important thing that we start doing, and that will lead us to the implementation. But before we go to that, let me quickly introduce the head of accounts, and this great establishment put together as a welcome, and introduce to you Mrs. Adekemi Ejije Ayuma. We celebrate you. Thanks for coming. God bless you. And also we have the chairperson, Association of Psychiatric Nurses of Nigeria, Aro chapter, or Aro unit, Mrs. Ogureni. Where are you? Thank you so much. Just take that. Like Dr. Karim said, all of us are major stakeholders from the media, the nurses, the psychiatrists, the social welfare, the psychologists, all of us are knit together, education, and that will lead us to the implementation of the roadmap. Like I said earlier, this program is not just physical, it's hybrid. And I want you to relax, sit down, tighten your seatbelts if there's one beside you. Because at this point in time, we are moving online. So I wish you a viewing delight as we go to the 8th item, the National Mental Health Act Implementation Program. And the person that will be doing justice to that is none other person than one of our proud products, Dr. Tunde Ojo. So please relax, sit tight, enjoy the munch something on your table if you have any beside you. If there is none, you can salivate and then there should be. So if there's no one, welcome on the usher to give you something to munch. So while we listen to Dr. Tunde Ojo, the implementation roadmap. Technical, over to you. So have a viewing daylight. While they are setting up, we have some of our journalists, the veteran journalists, Mr. Dao, the last week, it's a pleasure to have you. From AIT, from family, don't worry, we'll do our meeting immediately after this program. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you. Technical.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm having a bit of technical difficulties, but while we're resolving that, I would like to first express my gratitude to the APN for the privilege to be here today. I'd like to recognize, like my prof, in our presence today, in our midst today. First, I'd like to recognize the Honorable Commissioner of Health, Dr. Taiwo Tomikoka, ably represented. I'd like to also recognize the presence of Dr. Paul Agola, our host, the Provost and MD of the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Iowa. I'd like to recognize Dr. Oluwashino Ogunbade, yes. Dr. Oluwashino Ogunbade, Attorney General, Commissioner of Justice. I'd also like to recognize the APN President, my prof, Professor Taiwo Obindo. I'd also like to recognize all our APN ESCOs. Dr. Igor, it's interesting, the story, because I served here in Ogun State, in Abeokuta to be precise, Ijayi General Hospital. I'm a pharmacist by training. And Dr. Igor was a wonderful host. I thought I was going to stay in Ogun State, but somehow marriage took me out of Ogun State. But I thank him very much for hosting me while I was going through my NYSC at Ijayi General Hospital. Thank you again, sir. I'd also like to recognize Professor Taiwo Sheikh. Thank you very much for your support, sir. And to all our physicians who are here, our nurses, our psychiatric nurses, our administrators, and everyone who is present here, I welcome you and I thank you. My name is Ukiwe Kechinyere. I am a pharmacist. I'm the country manager for Janssen companies of Johnson & Johnson for Nigeria and Ghana. Moving very quickly, I would like to just touch on a very brief subject. I will take just 10 minutes to go through these slides. I'll be speaking specifically to bridging the mental health treatment gap, proof of concept and strategic partnerships. One of the roles of pharma companies is to ensure that we partner in a society where we have our physicians, nurses, pharmacists, and healthcare professionals to ensure that we strengthen the healthcare landscape. And as part of Johnson & Johnson's credo, our first responsibility in our credo is to our patients, our physicians, and to the community where we live. And we try to practice this, ensuring that we partner with the stakeholders to ensure that we strengthen the landscape. Next slide, please. I will not dwell too much on this. I thank the previous speaker who went in detail in from the journey from the Lunacy Act to where we are today. I will be speaking specifically to how the Act has also impacted even the pharma space. We also thank the APN for their role in ensuring that this Act was also put in place. Next slide, please. One of the things that I'd like to talk about is funding. Funding. The Act is very detailed and elaborate. However, there's an aspect to healthcare, especially in mental health, that isn't focused on, which is funding. The Act has also established a mental health fund for the implementation of its provision. The fund will be financed by voluntary contributions from individuals, from organizations, and from the private sector like ourselves, Janssen Pharmaceutical Companies of Johnson & Johnson. Money approved by the National Assembly is also part of this funding for the payment of the funds and grants, and monies from any other sources approved by the Federal Ministry of Health. Next slide. So why partnership? Why do we talk about funding? Why partnership? I know that a lot of people are aware about breast cancer. I don't think there's anybody in this room who has not attended or once pinned a ribbon or talked about breast cancer or know somebody who has been impacted by breast cancer. We talk about breast cancer everywhere in Nigeria. Our first ladies are very passionate about it, about women, even our men. But how often do we hear about partnership in mental health? How often do we talk about depression? How How often do we talk about schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorders? How often do you relate with somebody who has this disease? How often do you sit with somebody to find out from them how they are struggling with depression, with PTSD? How many people do we know have this disease? It's interesting because it's still stigmatized. Even within the elite, you find people who will be crossing on the road and they're very easy to say, that person is a madman, that's a mad woman, or that person is not well, there's something wrong with them in their head, alluding to the fact that they have a mental health disorder. But hardly do you find people make fun of anyone who has prostate cancer, or breast cancer, or even simple malaria. Hardly do you find anyone who talks about any other disease, making jest of them. But when it comes to mental health, it just seems like it's a joke, or we do not empathize with the struggles of people who have mental health. Some of the specific support that Janssen is preferring, or Janssen is partnering with a lot of persons and association with, is in expansion. We need to explore private partnerships and engagements within states first, like we are doing with the association here in Aru. We need to engage state governments to directly support indigent patients. We need to talk about the fact that there is a need to support patients who have mental health, financial support. We need to help shape their universal health care structure. We need to provide medication at access pricing, and I'm speaking to the pharma company here. We need to also gain. How do we gain? We need to ensure that Janssen continues to maximize the connections within the government, inroads into military, paramilitary organizations, further discussions on mental health to increase funding. And I'll be sharing an example of how we have been able to support funding in a particular therapeutic area and calling on support for us to do the same in mental health. We also need to support conversations around the National Health Insurance Act. Let me ask, how many people have insurance here? How many people are covered by insurance, whether it's the national health insurance or private insurance or state insurance? Wow, our hands are so few. We need to support conversations around the national health insurance. We need to start there first. We need to shape funding landscape by exploring innovative financing options. Next slide. I'm going to speak very briefly to the Cancer Access Partnership, and I'm using this as an example because I used breast cancer as an example when I started this discussion. There is something we call the Cancer Access Partnership. I don't know how many have heard about it. It's an initiative of the Federal Ministry of Health to support cancer patients. Now, what is this about? The Ministry of Health has partnered with some companies to ensure that they provide quality medicines to cancer patients at designated cancer treatment centers. Actually, there are 17 centers in the country. They're bringing together pharmaceutical companies and like-minded organizations to provide world-class medications at affordable prices to treatment centers across Nigeria. Also provide immediate payments to participating pharma companies and drug distributors to ensure sustainability of the system and routine stock replenishment. Basically, what they do is, the Ministry of Health has partnered with 17 centers. They have partnered with pharma companies to force their prices down by 50%. So what they do is they will check nationally, not just in Nigeria, they will check across other neighboring countries. So we're talking Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, and other countries within the Sub-Saharan region and the West African region, French-speaking and English, to make sure that the price that pharma companies are giving products in Nigeria for this particular cancer product is cheaper than they can get in any other part of the Sub-Saharan region. So what this means is if they find the price is cheaper in, say, maybe Egypt, they will go and buy the product from Egypt and make available to patients in Nigeria, even if the company is resident in Nigeria. So it forces the local company in the country to reduce their prices. So they reduce the prices by 50%. And then they initiate very little markup. And I think the markup in any center, any of the 17 centers, is only 8%. Only 8%. So 8% on top of the 50% to ensure that patients in Nigeria can access access cancer medicine at that price. That's the summary of all of that. Now, what does this do? It allows for more centers to participate, so there is availability regardless of where you are. There is access to quality medication because you are sourcing the medication directly from the host company. So if the company is GSK, it must be from GSK. If it is from Pfizer, AstraZeneca, the originator brands. We're not talking about generics here. We're talking about the originator brands. So the quality is assured. You can save 50% of treatment costs because they're forcing you to reduce your price by 50%. And finally, it reduces the out-of-pocket burden, which is why I asked, how many people are covered by insurance? For those who are even covered by insurance, how many of your insurance companies cover cancers or mental health? It's funny because I visited a private HMO and I asked them how much they cover for mental health. Guess what? They told me that they cover to the tune of 150,000 naira for a year. What can you purchase today? Medication for 150,000 naira for 1 year. Next slide, please. Not only did the government set up the CAP centers, what they also did was they set up what they call a catastrophic health fund. What is this fund for? This fund was set aside for indigent patients for cancer. So if a cancer patient today does not have funding, they can walk up to any of the 6 centers actually, any of the 6 centers, because the catastrophic health fund is disbursed to 6 centers of the 17. And they can walk up to the health desk, they will get enrolled, and they will access free medication, free, for cancer, free. Free medication for cancers, for indigent patients. A friend of mine and I were talking yesterday, and she was saying, oh, indigent patients, indigent patients. And she said, who is not indigent today? Who is not indigent today? So these are the, next slide, these are the funding opportunities that lie in some therapeutic areas. The reason why I am making this presentation today is to challenge us again. We have done so well by ensuring that the act is in place, thanks to the Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria for pushing this and even the legislative. But we need to do more. We have put the act in place. We need to put funding in place. The pharma companies like ourselves are ready to partner to push as much as possible funding. We have put 50% down of our prices, and we are still doing more. I mean, we know there's a devaluation in Nigeria today, so 50% is not enough again. 50% of last year is not the same 50% of this year. We are willing to do more, but we need your help to also support from the government side to ensure that we can get patients access to the basic medicine, like risperidone, at the very least, for our patients to afford, before we start talking about the big molecules. State partnerships, like Ogun State. Thankfully, the representative of the Commissioner of Health is here. So we thank him for being in our presence, because these are conversations that we're already having with the states on another project. We are hoping that we can expand this not just to the states, but also to the federal. Speaking specifically to the National Health Insurance, we have made a submission, that's Janssen, to the NHIA to include our products on the the essential drug list. And we are hoping that that will also be supported by some form of co-payment, where we pay some part, the government pays some part, and the patient pays some part. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish us the best in the remaining part of the workshop. Thank you.
Madam Nkechi, thank you so much for that brilliant presentation. A round of applause for her, please. So for now, we have a panel section. We jettison the goodwill messages. Probably we'll come back to that later. So the panel section 1, we have facility-based treatment of persons with mental health conditions. And to handle that, we have the Commissioner of Health, ably represented by the Permanent Secretary. And the call for this is by that. Okay. Sorry for the pause and the virtual
message on the implementation roadmap is ready. Sit back, relax, and I wish you a viewing delight. The next slide will be the video.
Food that we can have. And in the spirit of this, the National Suicide Prevention Strategic Framework was developed, which is one of the provisions, even in the Act itself. Then also the issue of the Mental Health Assessment Committee. Not very distant in this year, we will be having a critical meeting with all the leadership of the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, in which we will say charity begins at home. Can we establish the Mental Health Assessment Committee across all the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospitals as a starting point? And I appreciate that Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, and I know that there are some things that are going on in other places. We've had this sensitization in Kaduna, and I know that Kaduna in its own right has been trying to do some implementation of the provisions of the Act. But I would say the lowest hanging fruit for us, the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, is the assessment of the Mental Health Assessment Committee. And it's very, very important, the need for domestication, for adoption, and the domestication of the Act. And so I'm very happy that the Ogun State Ministry of Health and the Office of the Attorney General are present here. I think one of the good points that the state can look into is to see how to domesticate this. And we, as a national, as a federal ministry, we are looking at a very wholesale approach in which the draft can be made available, and the state, at the state level, the domestication will not be so much of an appealing task. And so it has taken a coalition to bring the Act into being. It will also take a coalition, not the people against the government, but working hands together in order to drive this agenda. Will this thing happen? It will happen. Is Nigeria ready for it? Yes, we are ready for it. But I believe that it will take all hands on deck to get it done. And this conversation that we are having, I believe will always move needed. And so I wish us a very, very fruitful meeting, and I will look forward also to some of the things, next step that will come from this meeting, in which that we are going to have to work this to be done as quick as possible. Again, it's good to be back at home. Harold will remain at home, and I thank you to everyone that has been able to make it to this meeting. Have a very good meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Thank you so much for that presentation. So we have some good messages. For while we waiting for that, let me invite the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health, Dr. Olade, to this time have a comfortable round of applause for him. Then we are moving straight to the panel section 1, facility-based treatment of persons with mental health conditions. And also let me invite the Association of Psychiatric in Nigeria President, Professor Tyler William. Just take your seats and make yourself comfortable. Please put together for me very well. So it's my pleasure to invite to this sofa clinical psychologist of renown, Dr. Olorunwaju Shode. Where are you, sir? A round of applause.
That I want us to all comment on is the availability of facilities. What do we think about the state of the facilities we have in country, and how the Mental Health Act will affect, or the new Mental Health Act will affect those working in these facilities? One, are these facilities adequate in terms of quality, in terms of quantity? And what challenges do we think the present state of mental health facilities will have in implementing this act? We'll start from Professor Bindo for his comments.
Well, thank you very much for that question. For the first part of the question, do we have adequate number of facilities in the country? I would say we don't have. Even the few that we have are located at the city centers. And therefore, 60-65% of Africans that live in the rural areas do not have easy access to mental health facilities. Talk about what the facilities that are available even at those centers. They are adequate. I would say they are not adequate. Quite a number of them are academic. Material resources at those centers are not also adequate. And that's why when Dr. Karim was talking about the mental health gap, he talks about less than 2% or 20% of people having access to this mental health care. And therefore we need to do more. Even funding is not adequate. Location is not adequate. What we plan to do, what we should do, is to insist and make sure that integration of mental health, which is the ninth component of primary health care, is fully also implemented. One good thing about our country is the fact that we have policies, we have rules, we have regulations, but implementation is often a major challenge. So if mental health care is fully integrated into primary health care, then we could have access. The Federal Ministry of Health is looking at the possibility of integrating or those in the people in the primary health care treat, actually assess, and then treat some mental health conditions, and then be able to refer those that are taken to hand. So if this is done, while we are employing more psychiatrists, more clinical psychologists, more health workers, we're also looking at the primary health care being well funded. And then the other one is National Health Insurance Agency. They also should implement and make sure that the medication and all that are incorporated, action tests are also incorporated into primary health care. Thank you very much.
Before the next panelist speaks, please let's introduce this additional panelist.
Thank you so much, sir. So we have another person from, but let me use the point to introduce the team. We have Alhaji Shehu Anarobi. Salam alaikum, sir. Àtẹ̀pàtẹ̀ ọmọ ni ẹgbẹ́lúwa tó bí so pàtẹ̀wọ́ ẹjẹ́ ká gbẹ́lúwa tó bí Alhaji Mustapha Araromi, Alhaji Abdul Rashid Owóṣeni, Alhaji Yusuf Obe, Alhaji Abdul Rashid Oladele. It's a pleasure to have you. And then, okay, Alhaji Abdul Rashid Oladele is part of the panel that will be, Dr. Ogun will be putting questions to. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm so happy we have the representative of the Ministry of Health, the State Ministry of Health, with us on this panel. And I'm glad that Prof mentioned the issue of quantity of facilities. And as part of his presentation, he mentioned the primary health centers, which is right under the supervision of the ministry, the state ministries of health. So let's hear the thoughts of the representative of the Ministry of Health of Ogun State, which I know is doing a lot, particularly in providing mental health at the primary care level. Please, sir, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you very much. This discourse has to do with facilities, whether it's available, and the quality of those facilities, and of course, in the primary health center. When Dr. Karim was making this, I remember he said something about, he defined what mental health facility. I mean, the definition of the mental health facility. And I remember he mentioned quite a number of places that could be used, that he even went as far as saying traditional. Oh, yes, there is no controversy about the fact that we do not have enough facilities. We don't have to also waste time on the fact that those facilities are not well equipped, and this will take quite some time. But more importantly, we are now, reasoning in the way of even incorporating, or it has actually been incorporated into our primary health care, mental health. And of course, there's no rocket science about it. We have to bring mental health down to the people. And we know most people are, of course, in the rural areas, and the primary health centers are the health facilities that are closest to them. So we still have a lot to do in that regard. Even diseases or conditions that were traditional, old conditions that we have been treating among our community, you will find out that we've not even been able to do them very well, even at our primary health center. So we have to keep at it, keep doing whatever we have to do to ensure that we actually bring primary, when I say bring properly, into the primary health care treatment, level, the treatment of mental health should be incorporated to our primary health care. We are doing our bits. We are trying to upgrade primary health centers. Quite a number of them, you will agree with me, like I said, are not even up to where they should be to take care of even the common ailments we have amongst us. But having this in mind that mental health should also be incorporated, we will do that, we will continue to do that. But more importantly, I think it is good enough for us to know that it goes beyond just government hospitals, primary health care, but traditional and health centers. Traditional homes have also been, recognized as facilities. What comes to mind easily is the issue of regulation. Well, that is very, very challenging. By the time you have a very broad definition of facilities that will take care of them, and I can assure you, they would really be engaged thoroughly when we talk about mental health, irrespective of the level where you are. But you see, we still have to regulate it. And that's where I think we have to come in massively, ensure that as much as we want to make it a cross-based, what's the called treatment, we want everyone to be able to treat them in all those facilities, the categories of facilities. We should be able to regulate them. We should be able to get to where they are and make sure that they are doing the right thing. And of course, it will take all of us here to do that.
Thank you very much. We will still come back to the issue of regulation because that was the second round of thoughts I was expecting to receive. But I think for that aspect of. I would like to listen to the traditional care practitioner first because while Prof said only 20% have access to mental health facilities, I will assume he was referring to orthodox mental health facilities. But that tells us that the remaining 80% are accessing some way, which some of them are accessing traditional, some of them are accessing religious facilities. Now we have someone from, I believe, the religious facility. I don't know which practice is it, whether it's religious or whether it's faith-based or traditional. But it can then tell us how people are able to access their facility and what it thinks makes some people prefer the facility as against the orthodox, or what it believes affects their choice of facility.
Good day, sirs, and good evening. My name is Alhaji Rashid. I can boldly say that we traditional and religious, mental stuff like that, we face most challenges more than any government hospitals about mental health. Because some of those mental issues, like let me say 20 years and more, let me say more sharp. They will last part discharging them from a government hospital like that or any kind of hospital like that coming to ourselves. So the challenges that they came from the hospitals. We have to face it spiritually, religiously. Firstly, when they come, we assess what they like, what they do. We see some are spiritual, some from their families, from their environments, from where they come from. So their challenges, their challenges are not, they are not normal challenges. Some people got their mental illness from drugs, from something like that. So the most challenge that we always face is from Yoruba we call it Owaye when they came to our side like that. So we face the challenges with spiritual. After they are okay and they are fine. So we just acquire them. Okay, some will be practicing Islamic stuff. Some will practice Arabic institute. So we just acquire them to the Arabic stuff. So after them, we can be fine.
Let me just ask the patients you have, or those who come to seek treatment in your facility, have you ever tried to find out what made them decide to seek treatment in the facility? Is it because of their belief of what caused the facility or what caused
that is the reason why I said we traditional stuff, we face most challenges in mental health than most of the hospitals.
Basically, you are saying many people believe that their illness is caused from a spiritual
stuff. So
that tells us about what may influence the choice of patients in which we seek treatment. We have a clinical psychologist also on the panel who spends a lot of time with individual patients and will be able to tell us a little bit about his interaction with patients and how they have expressed themselves about experience in this, both either orthodox or religious faith. What are the things your patients or clients, I know you don't work for clients, what are the things your clients have expressed that you think in implementing these mental acts can help to improve their experience? Because I'm sure one of the things the mental act wants to improve is the experience of patients accessing mental health services. So please, from your experience, share.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Actually, interacting with many of our clients, it also relates to the question you already asked others in terms of the quality of treatment. So we have many experienced patients that have been going from one facility to another, and they can actually say this drug I'm using is not even adequate. The one I'm using before is okay. So interacting with them, in terms of the facility, they say the facility is, the facility is not adequate in the sense that, the Nigerian problem now, when there is no light, no water and whatever, so I think they complain about it. Then the quality of the mental health workers also, because of this Japa syndrome, many experienced professionals have traveled, so the ones that are available, they are inadequate. And even despite their in terms of clinical experience, that in interacting with some of the professionals, there are certain expectations they have, and when those expectations are not met, it's like, okay, this facility is like, it's not adequate for me. Maybe I want to go to somewhere, or maybe I would like to see somebody else. All these things have impact. The inexperience and the number of professionals that are available is grossly inadequate. So the amount of care that they thought they should have is not what they are really receiving. So, and going by the Mental Health Act, which gives them a lot of privileges, like the informed consent, for example, that we require their consent in order to actually provide care for them. So, and this is very difficult because if the patient does not have insight to now say, okay, you want to treat, becomes very, very challenging. And they are becoming increasingly aware of also their legal rights also. They have, particular rights in some areas. Like the incident the provost said the other time during the hospital, what they were claiming is that they have the right to sit in the hospital and the right to also go there. If the facility is not adequate, they have the right to go. And with the Mental Health Act, we talked about certain things like restraining, seclusion, and a lot of other that you can't change them, you have to treat them in a dignified form. All these things are very good, is to help to increase the quality of care concerning the patient, but also the impact on the mental health worker is also there, because if they are not able to meet the adequate needs, then it becomes very challenging. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but it goes on and on. But
yes, you have not answered the question. You have raised another question, and that is what the discussion is supposed to be. And that's the question is related to the issue of regulation. Considering that the Mental Health Act prescribes privileges, but I think the word is more rights, prescribes the rights of mentally ill patients. How, given the quality or quantity or perceived lack of them in the system, how does that affect the approach to regulation? I would like to start from this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. When we talk about regulation, it goes beyond the quality of treatment that the patient or the client receives. It also talks about so many things like the facility, the quackery also has to be taken care of. And whether we like it or not, we are now in an environment where everyone wants to make money, irrespective of whether you are, when Dr. Karim was making his presentation, he talked about the providers, what is it? Specialists and workers and whatever you have. Talked about those who should at least provide mental health services. I can assure you that just like we have anywhere in Nigeria because of the economic situation, everyone, those who are not even qualified, once they come up and say they do, you will see people go to them. So regulation also has to not just about the quality of the services provided at the facilities, but also at the facilities, the appropriate place, are they the right places, are they doing the right thing, are those facilities even registered? Because if you don't know they exist, there's no way you can regulate them. So
sorry for interrupting you a little bit. We agree that quantity is low.
Yes.
We also agree that quality is low.
Yes.
And we agree we need regulation.
Yes.
It almost seems as if you regulate too much, it may even make it impossible for the little quantity to deliver much. So how does that affect the approach to regulation?
There can never be over-regulation, I will tell you the truth. That's why we have different levels of services. If at this level, this is what you can do. If you're doing more than what you should do, that should not be accepted.
Okay.
So if I regulate, if I insist that you go to the higher level, refer to the next level, you can never say one is over-regulating you.
Okay.
And you have to be there to see. You have to put some things in place to know that whatever you're doing here is
too much for what you should do. You must be able to get there and see that what. Otherwise, that's where I was going. Really, even facilities that are allowed to do certain things may want to do more than they are allowed to do, just because of the financial consideration. So you still have to regulate even those facilities. Even higher facilities must be regulated. So you can never over-regulate in the interest of the client and the interest of everyone.
Excellent solution, sir. Let's hear from Prof. Prof has been wanting to talk since.
Well, thank you very much. One of the major benefits of the new Mental Health Act is the fact that the quality of care for those who have mental health conditions are taken care of. Gone, will say, were those days when siting of mental health facilities is often outside the realm or the vicinity of where others are cited. Gone will be the days where the quality of care that people with mental health conditions receive will fall short of what other people with physical illnesses receive. So that would be because it's their right to receive appropriate and adequate care. So one of the things we need to do is to establish the Department of Mental Health Services in the Federal Ministry of Health, establishing the Mental Health Assessment Committee that will oversee the existing facilities, accredit existing facilities to meet the minimum standard or guidelines that will be set, and then those who want to establish, they will now make sure that they meet those minimum standards. And regular accreditation of those facilities would definitely try to maintain the kind of quality of care that they receive. And most cases to say that those people with the traditional healers, the faith-based,
they are already signaling to us that we are almost out of time.
We need to relate with them more. Yes. We need to have a good interaction.
I wanted the traditional practitioners to just make a comment on their readiness to cooperate or accept a regulation and what areas they think that.
Sorry, it's not their right or their ability to accept. It's for them to follow the rules. This is a law, and this is a minimum standard. If the assessment committee will set up no chaining, no typing, no beating, those should be followed. I think somewhere in the north, we saw what happened where people were just tied and
let's hear from them.
That should be
from them. So regarding regulation,
the issue is that every rules to this to what Prof is saying the other time should be applied. That's sure. We don't have any options to just survive the rule.
Okay.
So no beating, no time, anything that can even let me say anything that can just discourage or anything that can just well, how would I put this? That can just we can't create our rules ourselves. That's number one. We can't just create our rules ourselves. We follow rules.
Excellent.
And we don't do anything by ourselves.
Excellent. So this has been a
so that's the answer to your question.
Excellent.
And that's what I'm following about what Prof said the other time. That no beating, no time, no anything.
Excellent.
So we are trying to care. So we can't just do anything that won't make any sense at all.
Ministry of Health is happy that
That's it, sir.
Thank you very much. We close this panel session now and move on to the next activity.
ìpele márùn-ún tí àwọn ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ bá wọ èèyàn lára. Ọ̀nà tẹ́gbà.
Agbára ti rí tí wọ́n bá ti gbé wọn dé, èlò bá jẹ́ ọ̀nà tí wọ́n èyí tó bá jẹ́ àdìsíwí, oògùn àdìsíwí wà táwọn máa lò. Èyí tó bá jẹ́ alátẹ́kùn, oògùn alátẹ́kùn wà táwọn máa lò. Tó bá lè dé èpè wọn tó pè sọ́ra wọn ni, ẹ máa gbọ́dọ̀ pé èpè wọn tó pè. Àwọn máa ń fò.
Ẹ máa wo ìwé rẹ̀. Èpè kọ́ ló fẹ́ pè.
Èpè wọ́n fi ń wo èpè. Èpè wọ́n fi ń wo èpè. Èpè tó ń wo èpè lọ, ó wà lọ́wọ́ àwọn bàbá.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni, àjíǹde ọmọ jẹ́
Ìwọ ló ń fò.
tìdílé bọ́.
Bá jẹ́ ìdílé ni, tó bá ká bá ti wá tó bá jẹ́ ìdílé wọn, oògùn tí wọ́n fi ń wo ìdílé wà.
Wọ́n pè àkíyèsí wá sí pé wọ́n ní ìgbọ́dọ̀ ti ṣe ilé lábẹ́bẹ́. Bẹ́ẹ̀ni, wọ́n ní ìgbọ́dọ̀ ti ṣe wọn ló dáa. Wọ́n ní ìbọ̀lẹ́ kọ̀ọ̀kan àwọn ìròyìn tó wá létí pé ẹ máa ń pe àwọn tó ní àwọn ọpọlọ ẹ máa ń pe òun mọ́lẹ̀. Ìkíní nìyẹn o. Ìkejì ní pé ẹ ti máa ń lọ wọn ṣóòtọ́ ní àbí bẹ́ẹ̀ kọ́.
Èyí ó wá gba nínú àánú.
Òfin tí ìjọba gbé kalẹ̀ kì í sì kò fàyè báyẹ̀. That's a good, how will I put it now? A good comic relief. Do you agree with me? That's a good comic relief. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́, ta ló lè interpret fún wa? Volunteer to my interpret. Wọ́n ní.
Spare, thank you. If that person is being caused by other persons, they can cast spare on the individual. Then the third one you mentioned is the fact that it can come through the waves when there is a air blow on that person. Like, you know, sometimes we used to have this maybe during rainy season. It is not storm. It's not storm. Wind, yes, when there is blow of wind that individual can come up with mental illness or change of weather. Then the fourth one, it talks about it can be inherited. That it can be family, that probably family tendency, so it can be inherited. And the last one, it talks about witchcraft or wishes that they can inflict an individual with a mental illness. And they have, according to him, traditionally, they have means of attending to these forms of mental illness. And it was, Baba was made to know that the government has promulgated a law against restraining, especially use of shaming, as a means of treatment. But said there are some form of mental illness that you cannot manage without restraining them and beating them. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. That was one. Àbáṣá pé ètò láti wo ètò. Èmi ò gbọ́ yẹn. Thank you so much. So let's move straight to item 12. Dr. Adeyi Iwole, at this point in time, we need you in a few minutes to talk about pathway to non-orthodox mental health care, attractions and lessons. I think it's just like a rider to what we've been saying. A round of applause for Dr. Iwole.
Thank you. I think Baba has helped to make my lecture or my discussion a very good one. And this is very important for us as mental health practitioners, especially the orthodox. We are talking about the fact that we don't have psychiatrists, enough of them. We're talking about facilities not being adequate. One of the problems, and like my colleague said here, is that
in most of the studies that have been done for pathways of care, we found out that almost 80% of them will have visited Baba or, at worst case, a church. I'm a Christian and I'm a trained pastor. Many of us here believe that mental illness is caused by the spirit. Our Muslim counterparts also believe that mental illness is caused by jinn. That jinn needs to be cast out. That when you went to enter the toilet, you step in by your left. You don't talk or make noise inside the toilet so that the spirit does not enter. Excuse me, I'm talking of educated people. I'm talking of people who are professors, doctors, lawyers, believe in the supernatural basis of causation for mental illness. And that's a unique challenge we have in Africa. So until the orthodox practitioners, these psychiatrists, are ready to come to a middle ground, then the values that we have in the Mental Health Act is not going to be useful. Out of all the diagnoses Baba is making, we also encounter them. We meet some people with antisocial personality disorders or borderline personality disorders who can be extremely violent, and we assess their levels of dangerousness. We see psychiatric disorders in Poperium, isn't it? We have people who are genetically predisposed to mental illness. So for me, I think the challenge of the Mental Health Act is for us to see how we can craft strategies. One, tax shifting. I doubt whether the APN or psychiatric instructors have ever come up with a curriculum that we can use to train. Yes, we want mental health desk officers in the ministry, state and federal. But do you have a curriculum to train these people? There are a lot of colleges of health technologies all over the place. We should be able to begin to start thinking of constructing a curriculum that we can use to train them, that can make them to be far to other centers. Number two, we can't do that effectively if we don't appreciate their own view about mental illness. It's not possible. Parsons has told us about sick road, isn't it? He said that the society has its own belief about illness. That's why even some of us that are educated have our own belief, apart from our training as psychiatrists. So we need to develop or craft curriculum that will take into consideration the sick role of our society. What they believe is the cause of the illness, how long they think the person should stay before they stigmatize that illness, what they need to do, or who should they go to. So the challenge is that our curriculum crafting and our policy at the level of government may need to take into consideration what Paxson talked about. Because without that, we're not going to move forward. Many psychiatrists are moving out, but there are so many people in our colleges of health tech, school of nursing, many people like Baba. I'm a pastor. I have friends who own spiritual homes, and they cast out spirits. Have you know they cast out spirit in the Christendom and cast out? They say it's deliverance, and that the person needs to fast. And I told somebody, I said, the more you are fasting, and the person is not sleeping, the more is prone to mental illness. So we must be able to find middle ground. Let me read out some recommendations from that curriculum so that I don't waste our time. There has to be a wide circulation of this Mental Health Act, possibly compressed in easy-to-read formats in all the 3 main languages. Maybe the way Dr. Karim summarized it, so that people will understand what it is all about. This document should be circulated even to the 3 main religions, because religion is the center of our life here. Unfortunately, mental illness and religion, they are twins. What we call faith can be delusion. You know, faith and delusion are twins. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for. Delusion is So at times when they share testimony in the church, you wonder whether is this person well or is not. So at times, for instance, I'm an adjunct lecturer in my seminary. I teach mental health there. I wrote the mental health manual for this year for the Baptist churches. And the pastor said, no, I'm trying to destroy their. I said, no. Some of the people that you think are possessed are mentally ill. And that I can train you how to recognize the difference between one that is possessed and the one that is. So when they come with their own, like Babana, I can engage him and let's meet at a point. The truth is that there are some patients that are dangerous, and how do we manage them? There are some that are due to the pressure of childbirth. So we need, especially we that are orthodox practitioners, we have a lot of work to do, instruments of training, advice for policy, being able to collaborate with other workers. The use of media in every available locality to discuss. This kind of discussion that the MC was doing, we can do it on the radio and engage him without judging him, but we can find a place where we can synergize. There's particular encouragement of champions who can give account of how they survive their illnesses. Even in our culture, by the time somebody is coming from a particular culture and said, oh, I went to Waro, I took this drug, and yet I still pray and I got better. It begins to break the whole of the culture in their illness behavior and health-seeking behavior. Because those champions are the most pastors about mental health, the Baptist pastors, you know, and I engage, and they are getting to know that this mental health thing is an illness, it can be treated, it can also be prevented. There are sermon topics. If somebody says, I said, the generational causes over your life is what is making you not to pass exam. I said, no, can we appraise the situation first? Why you are not passing, isn't it? Rather than say it's one cause somewhere, go down, and then you develop mental illness. Thank you so much, and I think this is
brilliant. Let's celebrate Dr. Oyewe. I was just hammering on that the development of the curriculum. That's a beautiful one, and some other things he said. And then one thing he said when you go to church now, be careful of testimony giving. Either it's faith-based or delusional, whichever one. So when I say testimony time, hey, now testimony time. So don't go and say, okay, let me be quiet. So in those 5 classes of traditional classes of mental illness that Mama mentioned, panel 6. Let's celebrate it. We are looking at person with mental health conditions and criminal proceedings. And this section also will be moderated by Dr. Olorunfemi Ogunwobi. So let me hand over the mic to Dr. Ogunwobi. Let's celebrate him. So we have 20 minutes. Second mic.
Please, can we get the second mic on the... Well, let us ask the forensic psychiatrist first, if he can help us to understand, does that relationship really exist? And what kind of relationship does exist between mental illness and criminal behavior as, let's say, a foundation for this panel discussion? Dr. Olin Kamaji could be my teacher, my foremost forensic psychiatrist. Please open this discussion for us.
Thank you very much, moderator. Let me once again welcome everybody to this workshop. It'll be quite interesting, I believe. To answer this question directly, whether there's a link between mental illness and criminal behavior. Of course, several studies have associated mental health issues with contact with the criminal justice system because of criminal behaviors. Now, when we look at it, of course, there are different methodological research the science that have done this linkage. Of course, you are familiar with the twin studies, adoption studies, community-based studies, prison-based studies, among others that have brought about this association. Now, specifically now, individuals with mental disorders in a way have come in contact with the law. And usually we call them criminally disordered offenders. These are individuals who are in prison, the correctional facility, for example, or who have come in contact with the law enforcement agents. Of course, for any individual to get to the correctional service, he has to have passed through the judiciary. Now, the group of people with this contact are those ones whose mental illness has made it, let me use the right word, because of they have mental illness, and by virtue of that illness, they have committed a crime, which is influenced by that illness. There are those who are within the criminal justice system. For example, people may be in the course of investigation of crime, interrogation by police, people who have been apprehended, and usually when such apprehension occurs, they are usually sudden. Maybe somebody is in his office or at home, and the police or other law enforcement agents can apprehend that person. And so the individual loses his liberty at that time, with a sense of uncertainty about what will happen to himself. The issue of that apprehension brings about lots of social contact at that time. And the person might be in the police custody. And that process of police interrogation itself can predispose individuals, particularly those who are predisposed to becoming mentally ill. Look at the correctional facility, for example. Our correctional facility, the setting in that place is firstly, how do I put it? The condition is very appalling. The prison is overcrowded, and the welfare facilities is very limited, so that some people can actually become mentally ill because they are in the prison.
Thank you so much, sir. I wanted to reserve the comment on the correctional facility to Mr. Aloyede because I have experience here. So since you have started, maybe we should go directly to Mr. Aloyede. What are some impacts? I want to put it both ways. One, the impact of correctional facilities on mental health of those in that setting, and then what is the experience in the correctional facility in the management of the mentally ill, because we are now talking about mental illness and the law now, how it interacts. So the impact of correctional facility on mental health of inmates, and then the experience of correctional officers and other people working within the correctional facility in interacting with the mentally ill within the facility. What have been your experiences, sir?
Thank you, sir. Let me first of all start from where Dr. Majakobo was talking. During his discussion, he was trying to say something about the incident that brought some of these inmates to the prison, that it might leave them suddenly. And when it met them suddenly, it can bring a kind of issue that will lead them to having mental illness. Now, an inmate who was brought from the courts has been put under somebody's custody. Those are the correctional staffs who are working in the prison. Their safety is ensured with them. And as a nurse working with these people, most of them, they don't believe that what they did, they are at fault, that led them to court, that led them to prison. When they were being called by the correctional staff for their medication, some of them may pretend as if they don't know what they were talking about, until when somebody like me is being brought into the matter. We need to educate them, talk to them, enlighten them on the situation around them. And at the same time, we thank the federal government for the supply of their drugs freely. The federal government made it as a point of duty that if these people is being allowed to live with mental illness in themselves while they are still in the prison, let me see a double problem for a dead body. Somebody is in prison and at the same time having mental illness without using medication. You can see that it's a problem. Now, the federal government made it as a point of duty to produce drug freely for them. So it is our duty, with the assistance of the correctional center staff, to apply this drug for them.
Okay, this is for those who came in with mental disorders, or it also applies for those who develop mental disorders.
Yes.
Because Dr. Majekumi talked about two different categories. Some who, by reason of their mental disorder, are within the correctional system. They are got contact. Then he also talked about some of the stresses of the criminal justice system, also possibly resulting in development of mental disorders.
Yes. In fact, there are some people that had mental illness before bringing them to the prison. Dr. Majekumi can bear me witness that we have some of our patients in Aru that are also found in a criminal act in the town, and we are taken to the courts. And before we find it, we met them in the prison. So some of them will even establish with us that they have already had a fight in Aru, where some develop their own while they are in the prison. So it can come in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you very much for that background. Now let's speak to the legal mind amongst us, particularly with the background of the new mental health act, and knowing that there is some confluence between mental disorders and the criminal justice system. And in your opinion, what remedies is this new mental health act? Is it prescribing or providing? I don't know the legal terminology now for this identified problems.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. What the provision contained in the part 5 of this Mental Health Act, National Mental Health Act, is not so novel to the criminal justice system. In that before now, the criminal procedure law, especially of the state, has a provision there that has to do with testing or ascertaining the state of mind of an offender or a defender before such a person is made to face the trial of whatever brought him to court. So I'm very sure this thing that the provision contained here has been lifted from that provision of the law. With that as me, this provision contained here is a very good one, and then it goes a long way to ensure that before an offender, because that's the one used in this particular act, is used as offender. Ordinarily, when you are able to say defender, before now, we usually call them an accused person. But we don't refer to them as accused person now, we refer to them as defender. Now, the provision contained here is to the effect that before the defender is made to face trial, his mental state is first ascertained. And to do that, if on presentation upon arraignment in court after the police, after an allegation has been brought against him, and the police have done their own part of the investigation, and the matter has now been brought to court, the judge or the magistrate will have to first look at the countenance or the position of the disposition of the offender to ascertain whether he is sound, he can understand the proceeding that's going to go on in the court before the start of the matter. So if at the end of the day the court finds that it appears, or the lawyer representing the offender makes a case before the court that it appears his client is not in a good state of mind to stand trial for the offense that he has been charged with, the court will now have to refer such a person to the psychiatric hospital for an assessment. And that is what the law here has provided for, to the effect that once such a person is found by the court to be having to display some funny character while in the dock, and the court will now give an order that such a person be taken for an assessment. And it's expected that not less than 2 medical practitioners, especially those ones that are conversant with diagnosing and treatment of mental illness, will assess such a person. And it is after a report has been done, ordinarily in the first instance for 6 months, that such a person will be detained. They use the word detention here, is for him to be able to undergo the medical assessment that will be necessary for them to be able to ascertain his mental state of mind. So if after the assessment the report comes back and says he is well and okay, of course it means that he can stand the trial and the trial will proceed. If the report comes back and says that he is not fit, then the court will make the next pronouncement to the fact that he should be turned back.
Thank you very much. I just want to, for purpose of clarity, what I hear you say is that the fact that the offender or defender, as you have said, has a mental disorder doesn't mean he is immune from clinical trial.
No, it's not.
But it means that there may be some process leading to the clinical, for the criminal trial or proceeding. So it's just a clarification. Many of us know this, but we want it to be very clear that because one is mentally ill doesn't mean he can do anything in life. And then you say, oh, Omojoba, you mean? I don't know if you have ever heard that phrase before, Omojoba. There is nothing like, oh, am I speaking your mind, sir?
Yes. The issue is that, like I said, the court is not involved at the time of commission of the crime.
Yes.
The court is only involved at the time of presentation arraignment. So the law says that once you are in court and then the court finds that you are displaying some funny character, or the lawyer representing makes, or even the prosecutor feels that he is seeing some signs, then that is made known to the court, and the court now
and then it goes through the trial later. Excellent. So you want to go?
Yes, I just want to let us know that there are certain provisions that are made here which I feel that they are really good.
Okay, excellent. Please go on. Go on.
The 3 sections I provide also has to do with people who have been sentenced, convicted, and are in correctional facilities, and are exhibiting, maybe at the time they were convicted, they had no signs of mental illness, and while in the correctional facilities,
they develop mental health. There's also provision in this particular law that to the effect that those people can also be able to get court order such that they can be presented for assessment and their treatment. And also not only because of the other one that is not only because of the need for them to stand trial, but to also receive good medical care for their future life. So that is one of the things that is also made provision for in this particular law. And also, there is also a provision there that even at them, they can be detained in hospital or in facilities rather than in correctional facilities, depending on the severity of their mental illness.
Thank you so much for very clear elucidation of the some of these legal aspects of well, the law is legal anyway, some of the criminal aspects of the Mental Health Act. Now, from the clinician's perspective, there are a number of challenges we may face. I'm going back to my other again, and I will mention the two possible problems, but we'll take one after the other. The first possible problem is the patient who comes into the facility. I will not use the word hospital now because, as we have agreed, there are different facilities. The patient comes into the facility with an obvious symptoms of mental disorder, but as part of the information the clinician received, in the course of this mental disorder, there has been some criminal, or let's say criminal, or there has been some activity that can be considered criminal. So what will you recommend for a non-forensic psychiatrist, a provider who maybe is in the village and he has learned a little bit of non-mental health and is the only one there? The patient has come in and he has mental illness, obviously, with some history of criminal activity. How do you recommend, or what do you expect the practitioner to do? Dr. Omadekudu.
Well, I think I understand the question. I assume what you are saying is that if, for example, we have a patient that is brought into a facility, mental health facility, and because we have done due diligence in terms of our evaluation of that patient, taking history, and we discover that that individual has committed a crime. Yes. For example, maybe a patient is brought in and you discover that the week previously he had killed the daughter, something like that. And from all indications, there was no attempt at prosecution or reports to the appropriate court. Now, what we are doing in that situation is that, because you must understand that it is not lawful for any facility or institution to harbor anyone that has committed a crime. Even the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria Code of Ethics also emphasize the fact that you cannot, as a medical doctor, put somebody in your custody who has committed a crime. So what we tend to do is to request that, because sometimes they have that, they inform us that they are taking the person to the police, and the police, after realizing his behavior, noticing some of this behavior in their custody, they release him to the family to go and treat. And when they come, we usually ask that they should bring that police report. Oftentimes, they don't get it. We also know that they won't get it. So what we do as an institution, our whole role is simple, is to notify the law enforcement agent around us. We will ask our legal department and the social workers to go to the nearest police station to notify the police. We are not inviting them to come and arrest them. To say that we have an individual in this case who was said to have committed a crime, particularly murder. So that's what we do in order that he will not be considered as accomplice to a crime. So that's how we handle that.
I also want to listen to, sorry we may be leaving him back a little bit. I also want to listen to the representative of the Attorney General. how can the state help the practitioners in cases like this so that the practitioner can be protected while treating this mentally ill person without having this impression or feeling that he's harboring a criminal? What role can the state play?
Well, just like the Commander Dupont said, the critical thing is that once you notice a patient that is having mental health issue has committed a crime, is for you to ensure that you report to the appropriate authority, that is the police. And once that is done, it is taken off your hands.
So once we report, we are covered.
You report, at least it shows that you are not an accomplice.
Okay.
And so the other thing is that once the police is aware, they don't have to wait for too long. The provision here is now that you can approach a court to get an order, so that such a person.
Is that the is it the practitioner or the police?
The police.
Okay, excellent.
Can assist. Because the practitioner now, at the time the offender arrived at the practitioner's facility, it wasn't as if it was just there, maybe it was just brought by people around. There was nothing to show that he has committed anything at that point in time. And so it's only the practitioner, after interrogating, has now discovered that the crime has been committed by this particular person. You understand? So not only that the practitioner will, because at the time, you may be thinking that the patient is not of a sound mind. They may be of a sound mind, just pretending, or it may be of a sound mind. That you will be thinking that okay, like affecting some administering some drugs, that will be okay. But the next thing is that you must help the law by ensuring that such a patient is reported to the appropriate authority.
Excellent. They've already sent me a notice that we are out of time. However, a simple way we can think of this is this. Please just respond. Is it similar to this issue of gunshot injury? When a patient comes in with a gunshot injury, we attend to the patient first, but also inform the police. And once we have done that, we are covered. Is that the assurance the state is giving us? Excellent. Thank you very much for this panel. Let us move on.
Hello, good afternoon everybody. Yeah, it's been a very informative discussion. Like the MC mentioned, my name is Femi Oguede. I'm the Market Access Coordinator for Yanti. I'll be having a presentation on the cost consequences analysis of the use of long-acting injectables in Nigeria. Now, before I proceed, from the conversation we've been having all along, there's a major reoccurrence decima that has been occurring where we're talking about costing and also availability of medication to patients. Now, one of the critical things we're looking at, the fact that we have low resources and we're also struggling to make sure whatever resources are available for our patients will act.
Concentration. So let me introduce this one earlier on. The team from National Health Insurance Authority, the State Office. The team are right here before me. Sorry for not announcing that earlier. We celebrate you. Thanks so much for coming. Let me celebrate them. We have Sadiq Olaluwa, they don't want introduction, from DSS Abeokuta, DSS representative. Thanks for coming. Let's celebrate our officer. We also have Mrs. Funmini Olakoma, representing the Honorable Commissioner for Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development. We celebrate you. Thanks for coming. Let's celebrate. I'm putting our hands together for her. So straight away we'll move to panel section 3. Panel section 3. Sorry, don't look at that. We'll wrap up on that please. Panel section 3. So panel section 3, we're talking about National Mental Health Act and NASA's for mental health services to discuss so much on that and bring it to the panel section. We have the Executive Secretary, Primary Health Center, and the Ogun State Health Insurance, ably represented by Dr. Tola Yesufa, Deputy Director, Department of Health Insurance. Where are you, sir? Please take your seat. And also, let me also invite to take a seat Dr. Adekunle Ashimi, the Chairman, Nigerian Medical Association. He said, back to the panel. This one is not hot seat, it's 2 seats. And everywhere is 2 now. So, also, Mr. Femi Owede, where are you, sir? Please join this seat. Let me celebrate it. And also, I didn't even know the earlier on the head of social works. I hope she's there. Okay, this is Sako. She's a member of LOC. And she has been moving to us. And when the mediator between us, Orthodox, and Tewe Tebo. Mama Tewe Tebo, you never seen her. And I was Mama. Okay, someone said, oh yeah, is it you? No, she's a Christian. Amen. But so let me also welcome Dr. Ogunwobi, who will be moderating the session for the next 15 minutes. So, your time starts
now.
Your time starts
until you give us second mic, our time has not started. So please, let's so in the Mental Health Act, and you are also a practitioner. Can you comment about how easy is it for patients to get mental health services now? And what you think may be the impact of this new Mental Health Act? What are the provisions of the Mental Health Act that may be of concern or may give you reason to be excited? Mrs. Salako.
Thank you. Yes, looking at the Mental Health Act, I would say before the way things have been going before this new act that we are looking at to implement the accessibility of the service, patients having access to treatment, I would say to me it was easier before, because if you want to go by this, there will be some restriction, and as a social worker that's close to them, hearing some complaints and their feelings will make it a little bit difficult. Like, there's a page that says that before the patient can be accepted, the relative and the doctor must have 28 days. You sign, you have to stay for 28 days before everything can be completed. Now, I have a question there, looking at this, that if there's going to be a review, would you still have to invite the relative to come down before the doctor can make a review? That's one. If you have a vagrant, who is going to stand in for the vagrant? Because the other side, they said the first degree relative, where we are talking about the husband. A vagrant, where is the husband? And most cases we have abandonment, that the burdensome of this illness on families even makes some spouses to leave one another, to leave the wife or the husband. And the end product, mostly people that follow them for care in the hospital, falls on the relatives, that is the parents. Mostly you see aged people, mother, father, following them for care. And when you are referring to husband abandoned them. So if you really want to follow this new act strictly, to me it's like there's a little bit complication, maybe a little bit difficult to adhere to follow strictly on the path of the patient, looking at that. So let me stop it.
Thank you very much. She has raised a question for us to look at in terms of that this law is adding an additional layer to the accessibility. Let me just get the right definition first. The Open State Health Information Service, I believe. Please, I think we be in the best position to respond. Yes, she is saying that this mental health act, part of the requirements for what was the requirement to require something first degree relative. The requirement for the involvement of the first degree relative, particularly when it comes to involuntary treatment, which is what, so is that not adding an additional layer of accessibility or an additional barrier, I think, to accessibility in mental health care?
Well, you know, it has to be taken case by case. What exactly is the diagnosis? Is the person in the right frame of mind to actually take decisions for him or herself? Then with the addition of the legality, it has to be the first degree. I mean, it's a whole lot of barriers, I must say.
Okay.
But that being said, a database, if possible, state level, national level, then you know who is coming about. I was hoping to talk about the financial
accessibility, yes.
Which we'll get to.
We also will discuss that.
We'll discuss that. We take it now.
Yeah, you can raise that.
Yes, because for us that is what we are much more involved in as a health insurance corporate entity. The truth of the matter is, whatever domestication we are doing has to be to the grassroots.
Excellent.
Because the health sector, you know, the 3 tiers, from that primary to secondary to tertiary. And we are looking at a situation where we are not even overburdening. The burden on the tertiary institutions is reduced to minimal level. But a whole lot of factors then have to be in place. It's been mentioned earlier in the last plenary session, what trainings do we have, what mental health workers do we have even at the primary level, not talk of the professionals. Okay? Then specifically to the fund part of the Mental Health Act, which is the sources of the fund, voluntary contributions of the fund from individuals, organizations, money approved by National Assembly, grants from bilateral. Unfortunately, there are no specific figures to this that we can always hold on to. In the health sector at large, we have the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund.
Yes.
You know, it's static, we know what we are to expect. 1% of the revenue generated by the government, federal government, is what should be allocated to the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund. So that way, yes, we can then plan ahead in the next 1 year, in the next quarter, as it may be, what are we expecting from the federal government and what is worth. But suffice to say that there's actually a component of that that addresses the mental health aspect. However, from practical now experience, even for us at the state level, the State Health Insurance Agency, whom by the way we work very closely with our federal counterparts here, the NHI. I can tell that the level, or let me use the word number, of mental health cases we actually see in our state is below expectation. So that raises that question, what is happening? Are they presenting to the orthodox facilities which we deal with?
Yes.
All right? So there's no data in that aspect. Where are they receiving their treatment and what are they? But one thing I can assure you, my office here we sit, we have mental health disorder patients come around. Unfortunately, most of them are primarily even patients of neuropsychiatric hospital around.
Yes.
And they tell you they want to come on board. So this leads to the other aspect of us working together, health sector as a whole. As it is, the provost will agree to the fact that even neuropsychiatric hospital, ARO, and state health insurance scheme, we are not yet in full partnership. So when you even try to then tell the patient, okay, you might have other health conditions outside the
psychiatric
conditions. Come on board the scheme so that you have access to all these things. For all you get to know all these issues and cases that are interwoven. Alright? Let us, when the day you know what you expect at the end of the day, just tell you no, it has to be federal neuropsychiatric hospital or no other place. So it's all encompassing, multifactorial health education, educating the population as it is, that okay, this is just a segment of your health status holistically, and we just have to bring everything to the reality.
Thank you very much, and you are leading my thinking. In fact, what I've just realized from what you presented is that, well, I had a discussion recently, and where we were identifying many of the issues in the country, and what I realized is that what we have is actually a cost of living crisis in the country. And so many of the problems we identify is actually the finances that can help it.
Definitely.
And so in terms of accessibility, even this issue of family abandonment, many times, I'm sure the social worker will agree that the inability to finance the treatment will also contribute to it. So by reducing the financial barrier, we may actually effectively reduce all other barriers. I appreciate that your comment. One of the major financial barriers, and I'm sure the NHI will also comment, is cost of medication. And one of what is driving cost of medication is cost of production of medication. So let us ask is it a pharmacist now, or the pharmaceutical representative? How do you think the implementation of the new Mental Health Act can address this issue of accessibility, particularly the financial accessibility to effective treatment?
Okay, thank you very much. First and foremost, I would say the fact that coming from a private sector point, the pharmaceutical company, one of the first things I want to mention is that when we had an earlier session where the coordinator of mental health for the Federal Ministry of Health was speaking, one of the key things he had mentioned was that a drive to create a department, right? The idea of doing that is through that department, because when we talk about this whole mental health thing, to unbundle it is a multifaceted approach that we need to use. So that's the government, the private, as well as the citizen coming on board. Now, if the department is created, it is then easy for each of the areas to be driven through that department. On the Mental Health Act, there's a part that clearly talks about funding, like here, without specific percentage in terms of the funds that will go to this part. If the department is created, it then creates an avenue where we could have partnership to drive down the cost. And also, you had mentioned at the federal level already, you have the NHI, the National Health Insurance Authority. The next thing is every other therapeutic area is struggling for more funding and more coverage. So if you have a partnership or a group we work with synergy, the voice for mental health will be out there, it will reduce stigmatization, it will increase awareness, and once this is done, meaning there will be more funding from the federal government, and the state will then take a lead from the federal government to add to that funding. Hereby, the private companies will then also come in on board. This is how, look at any therapeutic area in Nigeria today that is probably to a certain level being covered. My colleague was discussing earlier and mentioned the kind of support around cancer. This happens because there's a lot of activities, awareness around this. It pushes the government to do that. So if we have the same system working within the mental health space, I think it should draw up more funding, and at least at point in point, yes, it's not going to cover everybody, but in point, year on year, we'll be able to grow in terms of mentioning number of people who will be covered in form of a healthcare coverage, one point or the other, because the truth is that the patient we're talking about in this case
due to the condition, their productive time is less. So we need that support from the government as well as private companies to cover the general cost.
Thank you. I was expecting that you would say that if they can order together, you can produce locally so that dollar price will not be affecting the price of medication again. It's okay. Dr. Ashim, you are our representative as doctors. You are, is it our representative or what will I use? Anyway, you are a servant leader and you are seeing some of the challenges we are facing and we are likely to face. Now, as a body of doctors, how do you think, or what role do you think the leadership of doctors' organizations like the NMA, like the APN, and the AR, what role do you think the doctors' organizations need to play to, one, help us ameliorate these challenges, and two, help our patients to have better accessibility and better outcomes?
Okay, thank you so very much. That question I would quickly answer by saying that these are the things we have already been doing. Now, let me just say categorically, one of the areas where accessibility could become a problem is where people themselves don't know where to go, when to go, and if to go. You know, what problem do you have? Where would you find help? Okay? And it's been said generally that a lot of people with mental health issues don't see it as such until they are enlightened, you know, or they find enlightenment somewhere. At the level of Nigerian Medical Association in the state, we severally call on our mental health specialists to feature on radio programs and TV programs. Okay, and we have also had dedicated radio programs on mental health alone. Okay, it was rested along the line, but we're resuscitating it so people have this information. We've also embarked on school mental health advocacy. In fact, last week Friday, we were still at one of the major secondary schools in Abeokuta, and it was a very, very fantastic item because we actually then had some of these children coming to meet us behind, you know, to talk about some of these things. We did that last Friday. Currently, we are working with the Nigerian Police State Command. I've seen comments around here. And we are going to now have a mental health outreach in all of the 10 police commands. Okay, it's going to be established to 13. In all of the 10 police commands within the next few weeks. We are still trying to raise the funding, but it's going to happen. Also, on about 2 days of the House of Assembly and the honorable members, you know, for domestication. And as part of the fallout for that interaction was that we need to then go on to engage the executive arm concerning this, so that we can work in synergy to ensure that they domesticate that mental health act here. So this is the much that we have done. And I know there is still more that can be done. It's tasking. It's tasking because to get people to shift from what they used to believe or what they believe to what we are preaching. Because for a lot of us as Africans, mental health issues are essentially spiritual. And it takes a lot to be able. And then you see, if you look at the spectrum of mental health illnesses, it will take a long time. You know, I was at a program with the Women Affairs, and then I brought up something like dromophobia. You know, dromophobia is the fear of crossing the road. And you see how many children are beating black and blue because you ask them to go and buy something. Maybe the mother say, go and buy this salt. And it is across the road that they sell it. The mother assumes that it gets to the road and it crosses. But she's in the kitchen. She didn't know what was happening. The child was afraid. I have to wait until there's an adult to take him across the road. But how many of us ever render such help to children? So the child has to wait till the road is clear. Or if there's a bridge, has to walk further to get it. But he is beating black and blue for that. Oshiri Loni, Oniranu, you know, all of those things. So the spectrum is wide. And so we need a lot more education to be able to do this using the various media that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope also you will be part of the domestication of the mental health act. So that some of the challenges that we are seeing in this present mental health act will not also present in Ogun State's version. So that hopefully Ogun State version will be even more updated than the National Mental Health Act. In view of time,
you see that we have been mental health friendly.
Yes,
and we want to follow through with anything that we're doing.
Excellent. Excellent commitment from the NMA Ogun State Chairman. We close this session because of time, not because the conversation has ended, but just because we
the
have...
NMA Chairman has one more assignment to do.
Okay, so let's...
You must be mental health friendly because there is no health without... Let me complete it. He must be mental health friendly because there is no health without celebrating the chairman of all the families. That's a real section. We appreciate this for coming. Let's point in time. Should we leave it on the side? We've been sitting for a while. Let us stand up and let's do like this. Oh yeah, let's do that. All should do. My head, my shoulder. I'm not going to do that. Let's for 1 minute exercise. But you are going to. You are doing it in concert. Are we ready? 1, 2, let's go. Yeah. My knee, my head, my knee. Last time. Who does it belong to? Your wife or husband? Answer it. Thank you so much. You know, we've been sitting for a while and it's not so good. And I want to really appreciate of our rapt attention, concentration since we started this program, the workshop on mental health acts. And you believe me that all the sections have been impactful, they've been germane, and all of us will go back with so many things, so many talking points. Talking for development of curriculum, education, domestication, and all that. So all of us are needs, the doctors, the psychiatrists, the social worker, the clinical psychologists. So at this point in time, unity of purpose, like someone said on an online platform, unity of purpose, doctors cannot do it alone, the nurses cannot do it alone, the clinical psychologists cannot do it alone, the social worker cannot do it alone, the occupational therapist cannot do it alone, the speech therapist cannot do it alone, the health education therapist prevention cannot do it alone. All of us are key stakeholders in this exercise. So once again, let's celebrate ourselves and put hands together for ourselves. So at this point, we have our online audience. You know the questions are ready. Questions? Oh, okay, while we are preparing the questions, let me invite to the podium, representing the coordinator, the state coordinator of National Health Insurance Authority. I have with me, give us in 2 minutes, goodwill message, Mr. Olugwanga Kennedy, Assistant Director, National Health Insurance Authority. Put your hands together for Mr. Kennedy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Workshop has been of immense impact to each and every one of us here, and I believe that we are better informed on what mental health is all about. Just like it was said, I am here to give you a goodwill message on behalf of my coordinator. The National Health Insurance Authority, I'm sure we know, the act was signed into law, which makes health insurance compulsory for everyone. The mental health also is also a key part of this act. And we on our part in NHIA, we are doing a lot to ensure that the mental health issue is being taken care of. For example, the NHIA is presently having the NHIA Medicine Supply Initiative, which one of the speakers, that pharmacy, Nkechi, alluded to on what NHIA is doing regarding the cancer treatment. NHIA has partnered with some pharmaceutical companies, and currently we have a test run ongoing in Abuja and Niger State. And once this is completed, I'm sure it will be cascaded to other states. And we have a sharing formula, which is, I think, part of what they said they recently proposed to the authority. I think it's 50-30-20, where the enrollee pays 20, the government pays 30, and then the pharmaceutical company pays 50% of the cost. So one thing I also want to advise is that the association can also make a proposal to the management of the National Health Insurance Authority, because they need to ensure that the act is properly aligned with the operational guidelines. Currently, I think the reason why my state coordinator is not here is because there is a strategic meeting ongoing in Abuja on the implementation of the NHIA Act, how the Act is going to be implemented. So, and I think it is important that, this is brought forward to the management so that they can, factor in issues relating to mental health as it applies in the Act. And one thing we will do on our part in the state is, going forward, we will ensure that we strongly factor in enlightenment and sensitization on mental health and well-being of enrollees as part of our way of creating awareness to enrollees and prospective enrollees. So on this note, I would like to say thank you, and we hope that going forward we'll have a better and more knowledge and awareness about the mental health act. Thank you so much.
Round of applause for Mr. Kenny. Sadis usually called the state chairman of NLA in 2 minutes to give his goodwill message, and after that, I also invite Mr. K to also do for the judiciary. It's been a while, I need to hear from the judiciary. I know you are a lot spiritual. I'm a lot temporal. Not spiritual, I'm a lot temporal, so we need to hear from you. Over to the enemy channel. A round of applause for the enemy channel.
Let me say good afternoon once again, and I would also want to align, following your prompt, with the established protocol. I want to say that we are quite happy to be here. Otherwise, we would not have been able to drag the two powerhouses of the Nigerian Medical Association to this event. At the same time, the General Secretary of NMA is also here, and has been here since March, and he has refused to go, despite all the rules. Yes, we align, and we actually also believe strongly in the provisions of the Mental Health Act. And while some people may want to, immediately cast aspersion in certain areas. But we have made use of a law, the Lunacy Act, for almost 110 years, starting from 1916. And we are coming up with a new one that seriously addresses mental health with the current knowledge of medicine and the functioning of the brain and the human behavior. And so we need to give it a chance. And as we go ahead, we then look at those areas that are still contentious, and then we continue to have discussions like this and bring them forward and discuss them critically so that it continues to evolve. Never again should we have a law addressing any medical or clinical issue that will stay longer than 5 years or 10 years before it is amended. This will be one of those things that we will fight for. Now it is mental health and not lunacy. There is a strong community focus in this act, and we believe that we need to engage, just like we are now, the community people on this. And so, the governance structure is there. The finance gaps, the funding gaps have been identified. But one of the most critical ones is that the allocation or what the finance sources is not specific. It is still vague. But it's a good start, which means that government already appreciate the fact that we need to fund mental health. And for Janssen to come this far as reducing 50% of the cost of these drugs, definitely they know it's going to eat deeply into their bottom line, but then they are serving humanity. And everybody that has been here since morning who have not left, you have a lot of other things to do, but you remain here because you want to impact on the community and humanity as much. I thank you so very much for being here. I thank the organizers. Thank you very much.
And the one doctor you say to celebrate, thank you so much. That's a brilliant one from you. At this junction is giving goodwill message, not passing judgment. And we are not in the court, so we are safe. So please, let me invite Mr. O.L. Oke, the Ogun State Chief Registrar and Main High Court, representing the Chief Judge of Ogun State, Justice M.A. Jacob. A round of applause for him, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. I would align with the President of the APN. I align myself with protocols as established. I bring greetings from my Lord, the Honorable Chief Judge of the State, Honorable Justice M.A. Jacob, FICMCF General. His Lordship would have loved to be here, but other pressing judicial functions and assignments have prevented His Lordship from coming here. And His Lordship is delighted that this workshop is holding, a mental health workshop that pushes focus and light on issues affecting people with mental health conditions in Nigeria. It is heartwarming that it's happening in Ogun State, and it is also a thing of joy that the Mental Health Act, which has replaced that which has been in operation before now, is coming on board. His Lordship is particularly interested in mental health, and she's proved this in the last 2 retreats that have been organized in the Ogun State Judiciary, where I think the General Secretary has come to speak at those retreats on issues of mental health. By way of intervention, I know this is a goodwill message, but I think I should just, from the position or from the viewpoint of the court, make this quick intervention. Suggestions have been made about domesticating the Mental Health Act, which means that we expect that states should have their mental health laws. But I don't think that the advocacy should be limited to just domesticating the Mental Health Act as it has been passed by the National Assembly. Gaps have been observed in this Mental Health Act, and there is nothing wrong if solutions are designed to fill those gaps, and those solutions are incorporated in the mental health laws that are to be passed by the state houses of assembly. So for instance, all of the gaps and observations that have been identified here can be worked upon and included in whatever draft is being forwarded to the Ogun State House of Assembly, such that the Ogun State law becomes a yardstick or a template upon which the national acts can be modeled upon. This has been done by Lagos several times, especially with the administration of criminal justice laws. They were the first to pass it in 2007, they amended it in 2011, before the Administration of Criminal Justice Act came up in 2015. I think that in considering the provisions of the Mental Health Act, recourse should be had to the provisions of the Administration of Criminal Justice and Other Related Matters Law of Ogun State. I think Part 29 contains 14 sections that deal with persons who have mental health challenges and the integration of their rights and privileges in the criminal justice system. So if you're looking at pushing for the domestication of the mental health law in Ogun State, the think tank can be convened that will look at the provisions as they already exist in the Administration of Criminal Justice Law 2017. These provisions can be found in sections 291 to 305 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Law of Ogun State 2017. So you will find provisions which take care of the rights of people with mental health, and this can be incorporated into the bill that will be passed to the State House of Assembly. I congratulate the Association of Psychiatric Doctors in Nigeria and Janssen for putting this workshop together. It's been an enlightening time, and it's good to see that steps are being taken to protect the vulnerable amongst us. I wish us all well and join nurses. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much to our Lord Temporal, Mr. O.N. Okay, thank you so much for representing the Chief Judge of Ogun State very well. Applause once again for him. At this point in time, we have one of the heads. We're talking about the Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria, the immediate past president. We have Professor Taiwo Lateef Sheikh. But 2 weeks ago, he was online at a virtual colloquium, and his presentation was brilliant, not missing one, talking about mental health acts. And he gave us our 2 roadmap. He said that we'll go into the way of the law or the way of judgment. But he's here this afternoon to do a recap of the gains of the National Mental Health Act and the workshop highlights, what we have done so far. It's just going to be a summary and a recap. Please, if your hand is not busy, let's celebrate this Professor Taiwo Lateef Sheikh. Celebrate him. It's a pleasure to have you in this gathering this afternoon. You're welcome, sir.
I stand on the existing protocol, but I have to specially recognize the President of the Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria, Professor James Taiwo. I have to first of all declare my conflict, if ever it exists, but it's good to make some disclosures. That I am one of the participants among several stakeholders that drafted this bill primarily and pursued the bill to come out to be a law, an act. Wow. So, deliberately, I sit down quietly to listen to comments, to people coming up with the gaps that are there, and making recommendations, because if I say I'm going to contribute, I will still be speaking my mind, and it will not allow me to appreciate how the public considers the act. So I've been deliberately very quiet and taking home the messages that have been passed. I take this responsibility with a very deep sense of appreciation to come here and talk about, to summarize the gains of today's procedure. I want to first of all mention a few things, not trying to contradict or defend what people have said, but just to add a little bit. When we talk about domestication, another thing is I try as much as possible to just say things the way they are. And we know when you do that, you step on toes sometimes. Because people don't usually like to hear you say things the way they are. They want you to play politics with everything. But we are academicians, we are not politicians. When we talk about domestication of the act, the truth is that today, as of today, Ogun State is operating under the Lunacy Act. With all due respect, sirs. The Lunacy Act of the Lunacy Ordinance of 1916, which became a regional act in 1958, and that is what Ogun State is using today. Because this National Mental Health Act is a national act that is not actually implementable in the state until the state repeal the Lunacy Act and then domesticate the National Mental Health Act. And we are praying that we do that, if possible, tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. Because as it is, that Lunacy Act does not understand the modern language of mental health. There is nothing called mental health in it. There is no promotion, no prevention, no treatment, no rehabilitation. It's all about custodial care. Once they say you have insanity, they take you. In fact, it labels you as a criminal and actually increases the stigma that is associated with it. So as soon as we can, we want that law to be repealed in every state and domesticate the National Mental Health Act. The National Mental Health Act is not too specific because somebody was talking about we didn't put figures in the mental health fund. It wasn't possible. We have to allow other people to be able to do that. So also when it comes to states, you'll find areas where the states will be able to now domesticate as they wish. So including things that govern regulation, quality control, and so on and so forth. Implementation of the Act, when you domesticate it, it starts with, I was speaking with my colleague, Director of Public Health there, that the first step, the rate determining step in implementing this at the state level is to create that department or a division, depending on what the states can afford. But you must create a governance structure for mental health within the states that will give a coherent direction for a very good implementation of mental health service delivery policy within the states. So this is very critical, and this is what we are pushing the Federal Ministry of Health to also do. Yes, we have mental health facilities that have been defined, mental health workers and professionals. And I think when we come to the summary, I will say something related to that and how we can all work together to improve the livelihood of the citizens of Nigeria. So what have we done today? I must commend the rapporteurs that helped me to put this together. And the rapporteurs are led by Dr. Yassi. So I thank you very much for doing this work, reducing my own work that I have to do. Thank you very much, Dr. Yassi, and colleagues. The National Mental Health Act is a significant reform in the mental health space in Nigeria. You can imagine that we have been holding on up till 28th of December 2022 to make Lunacy Act in this country. So it's a very significant reform in mental health space in Nigeria. And it's necessary for everyone. It's a whole society document. It's not just for a section of the society, but it's primarily directed at developing a governance structure for mental health, protecting the rights and privileges of people, our brothers and sisters, our children yet unborn, who may come up with a problem of mental health condition. So this document is very important for policymakers to take a look at it very well. It's very important for service users to understand it very well. It is very important for mental health workers and the judicial system to understand it well. We have come up with this today. These are some of the resolutions that we have taken today, that all this whole society needs to take a very good look at the Mental Health Act and know how it works, the working of the Mental Health Act. The implementation, we also agreed that the implementation is a journey that is starting now. However, we need to go step by step, as pronounced by the lead of the mental health program in the Federal Ministry of Health, Dr. Tunji Ojo, when he made his own contribution. That the implementation, just like the way the Act was delivered by the stakeholders, multi-layered, multidisciplinary, and multi-sectoral stakeholders were involved in the development of this Act. So also the implementation. The implementation must also involve multi-layered, multidisciplinary, and multi-sectoral stakeholders for it to be done properly. And so all hands must be on deck. Yes, I've said it earlier, but it's still one of the resolutions that there is need for the states to domesticate this law to ensure implementation. You cannot start implementing if the state House of Assemblies have not domesticated it, because it will be working against the Lunacy Act that is presently existing. So we must repeal that Lunacy Act. The Lunacy Act is not a federal government act. It is a state government act, which was inherited from the regions when the states were created. The regions inherited it from the colonial masters. The Act, we also agreed that the Act is already a law and is thus binding on all of us. And that it's important that all of us get educated on it. There is no shifting of the task of implementing it. We must do it together as a whole society. We agree that, as contained in the Act, the rights of people with mental health conditions need to be respected and their privileges need to be protected. We also agreed that the Ogun State government is making moves to improve access to mental health services, including creating additional facilities, creating a task force, and also improving the funding of mental health within Ogun State. We need to clap for Ogun State for this. Yes. We agreed that the Federal Ministry of Health is meeting with the leadership of the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospitals as part of the roadmap for implementation of the Mental Health Act, taking care of their own responsibilities. We also agreed that the Federal Ministry of Health is creating an abridged version, a shorter version of the Mental Health Act, and also is in the process of translating the Mental Health Act into various local languages for public health education. We agreed that collaboration and training of non-orthodox practitioners, the media, and other stakeholders should be embarked upon as contained within the Mental Health Act. At this point, I think I will also add that we do know that 7 out of 10 people who approach the orthodox treatment centers or care centers must have attended either one form or other of non-orthodox practitioners, which means first timers that come to us that have never gone through spiritual, herbal, or other forms of non-orthodox care are only 3 out of 10. So for 7 out of 10, we cannot really tell them where to go because they go elsewhere before they come to us. And in so doing, it is very important that we recognize the services that the unorthodox are providing for our patients. Why? Because we have also, Dr. Yasin has established to us here that only 15% of people with severe mental health conditions have access to orthodox care. 85% do not, because the facility, the personnel are not there. And if they are not there, they must go somewhere. And the first place they can go to, 7 out of 10 of them, is to go to the unorthodox care. So it's important that we recognize the contributions that the unorthodox care are making for our own mental well-being in our society. This is a must. We can't shy away from it. However, we all need to be regulated. The Mental Health Act has a section on regulation, but it did not provide specific regulation for unorthodox. It provided a blanket regulation not to torture persons who are suffering from mental health conditions, because we consider chaining and beating as torture. However, every state will need to convoke the meeting and organization of unorthodox practitioners to regulate themselves, to create their own regulation and hand it over to the public. And the public will be the one that will now adjudge if anybody complains against them. Will use what they have created to be able to investigate what they have done and be able to give the right measure that needs to be given. If we say we are going to regulate them from outside, it will never work. So let unorthodox practitioners bring them and let them form a group and let them debate among themselves. To what extent can we practice? And what do we do that will contravene what is within the Mental Health Act? And then they give it to us. The person that will chair that tribunal will not be an unorthodox practitioner. The person that will chair that tribunal will be a member of the public. But we will allow one of them to sit on the table, on the panel, while others will be within the panel and judge them according to what they have provided as their own regulation. I think that is the only way we can regulate the practices of unorthodox practitioners. Then I think we also agree that the medical practitioners need to communicate on time in case of people who have mental illness and under criminal situations. That we should communicate to law enforcement agents that those who have criminal issues are under our care so that they will be properly managed. People with mental health disorders have no reason to be within the 4 walls of the prison. This is my own personal opinion. You don't even set up a mental health clinic within the prisons. It's wrong. Mental health clinics should be outside the prisons because warders are not mental health specialists. They cannot look after them the way they should. So those who have criminal issues should be in forensic wards within mental health institutions, not clinics within the confinement of the prisons. Then I think finally, it was also agreed that there is need for public-private partnership in order to reduce the cost of care for persons who are under the burden of mental health conditions. And then let me just add that one of the major problems we have is you will hear me talking about mental health conditions, that is what is in the act. Not mental health disorders, not mental illness. Within this hall, I think we should take this hall. something that will take home. Mental illness is just a stigmatizing word. There is no condition that is called mental illness. Johnson & Johnson talked about schizophrenia. Someone else talked about depression. Those are the conditions. But there is nothing called mental illness. When you gather everything together and put in one box of mental illness, you are just stigmatizing people. And people will be running away from you. So please, let's stop using that term mental illness and mental disorder. Conditions range from distress to syndromic conditions like schizophrenia or depression. Majority of people you see on the street, that people are shouting that they are sick, they are only under some mental health distress. He couldn't pay school fees, he becomes irritable. There is no food for his family, he comes out, he's aggressive. And if you are able to give him resources for the food, he's healed. Is it not so? So it's not everything that requires medicaments. And it's very important to understand this. If you allow me, I think I'll just keep talking. I want to thank you very much.
Brilliant one. I think we deserve a round of applause. Professor has been brilliant. You know why online, I enjoyed it. Physically, brilliant one. Let's celebrate, that's a brilliant one. And the second thing I should take home is that there's nothing like mental health illness, it's mental health condition. And that's a brilliant one, that's a way to go. It will even reduce the issue of stigma attached to not mental illness, but mental health condition. Once again, let's celebrate Professor Taiwo. That's a very brilliant one. So you have said all hands will be on there. There must be unity of purpose in our drive to full implementation of and we all agree that the brilliant exposition and the discussion of mental health tasks. So it's for us to go back to town, to our different places of our and then spread the good news about education, curriculum, and all that will be on there and ensure that this acts is everywhere in town. Both the Orthodox way and unorthodox way. I'm integrated check go and I'm only going to the religious bodies also. Mama Shosha, are you here? So thank you so much. So let me use you have been a comedian. Please put together as I welcome Dr. Oluyinka Emmanuel, the head of clinical services, who also doubled as the LOC chairman for his vote of thanks. Celebrate him, celebrate him, celebrate him.
Let's do more of that. That applause. No, it can be bigger. It can be better. It's obvious that we have done beautifully well. I mean, all of us. The LOC would not have achieved anything if it has not been that you are actively involved in all this. So, we want to appreciate you, and again, let me request that you jam these hands together one more time. I am excited really for this beautiful outing that we have this afternoon. Well, to the tasks that have been given this afternoon, I must confess that it is a very difficult task. It is difficult in the sense that this requires that I must have to follow protocol. If you are familiar with my person, I am not a very organized personality. Do you say that is self-stigmatizing? I know that's the truth. I'm not very organized person, though I like to do things that many people don't like to do, or do things that others will do in a different way. But let me try to make an attempt at this task that I've been given. because of the bias that I have, I am supposed, not that at this time, I am supposed to thank our provost and medical director first, but I will not do that. I'm going to thank every other person on his behalf. So, I'm sure the provost will permit me to do that. Mr. Provost, sir, let me appreciate the Commissioner for Health, who is our chairman, a co-chair of these very beautiful events, who is being ably represented, who has been represented ably here by the Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Health, Dr. Olukayode Oladeide. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for your contribution. We are really appreciative. In the same vein, want to appreciate the Attorney General and Commissioner of Justice, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, I think I must have missed that name, Ogunbade, who is represented here by Mr. Odumuyiwa Ogunsanwo. Thank you very much for your valuable contribution to the program today. You're welcome. Now I want to go to my president, and that is the president of Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria, Professor Taiwo James Obindo. Thank you very much. He's a very good president, and he looks after us, his members, and he also provides certain opportunities for us in many ways. Please help me to thank him now, so that by the next opportunity, he will remember me as well. There's somebody I should have talked about at last, but if I try to do that, I might forget to mention him again. And he's that same person who just left this place, who had recounted all that has been done here today. And you agree that he's am I supposed to say my superior, my teacher, is a brilliant person, highly intellectual, highly resourceful. He has all the attributes that I cannot even begin to recite here now. That is somebody what's interestingly, he's my friend, even though he's my teacher, he's my everything, but he's my friend. A one-time medical director of the Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Kaduna, the past president of the Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria, somebody who has taken me to some part of the globe. And I'm not going to mention some of these places. And that is who again? Professor Taiwo Latif. Please, Prof, sir, please can you stand up again for people to help me appreciate you, sir? You see, look at it. It is not just professorial, it is royal, it is majestic. Everything about him is beautiful. And it's a very proud of beautiful women. Thank you very much, sir. Oh, did I miss the Chief Justice of Ogun State Judiciary? N.A. Dibelu, who is represented by Mr. Ubel. Okay. Eshisa. Thank you very much. I will quickly mention Dr. Edu Aiguru, that is the past head of service of Ogun State, head of Ogun State Civil Service, a very gentleman, a good teacher. We look up to him. He's our mentor. He's a very wonderful personality. Thank you so much for coming to this beautiful occasion. Thank you very much, sir. At this time, the national, the country, the representative, Is it the manager or representative or... And she's not just the country manager or representative. She is inter-country representative. She pronounces it in a way that I find it difficult to replicate. Maybe she will help me to pronounce this Yancy. Is it Yancy or?
So it's a derivative from a German called Dr. Paul Janssen. He's European. But the Americans, as you know, Americans like to do their things differently. So Americans call it Janssen, while the Europeans call it Janssen. Why? Janssen. But the Americans will call it Janssen.
If we combine the two, what do we have? Janssen. Please appreciate Of course, that is one company that has really been helping the cause of mental health, not only in this country, not only in this West African sub-region, not only in Africa, but intercontinentally. Thank you very much for the good job you are doing. We appreciate it. We need more of those support. I must, at this time, mention one very controversial man. Somebody who gave a talk about what's the topic? That man that talked about is there a difference between faith and delusion? He is my brother, really. I've known him for well. He is Dr. Adewale Wole. He is the president, national chairman of the Mental Health Awareness Advocacy Foundation of Nigeria, and also the leader of that foundation. And in actual fact, I am the chairman of the state branch of that foundation. Please clap for him. Dr. Adewale, the Mental Health Foundation, the Medical Minister of Health, the Executive Secretary of the State Health Insurance Scheme, he is my classmate. I'm going to find him for not being here. But thank you for representing him. Oh, he's over there. Please tell him. Okay? Then, at this point, I'm coming home. Hello, nurses. Nurses, please hold on. Your vote of thanks is coming. Just a minute. Don't leave yet. Please wait. All consultants, psychiatrists, further consultants from far and near, thank you for coming to this occasion. All heads of departments, heads of units, every other members of this institution, we recognize and appreciate your presence and your endurance during this meeting. I must quickly mention the Deputy Controller of Corrections, who have been also very patient with us. Thank you for coming. Let me mention Dr. Baku, the head of the Department of Psychiatry, Federal Medical Center. You are welcome. Dr. Ebewu is also around. Very important, let me mention Mr. Ringwan Adibi. He's a very special individual. He is the alumni coordinator of the School of Psychiatric Nursing Agro alumni in the diaspora. He's here physically with us here. Please help me appreciate him so much. Thank you so much for coming. Let me thank all the panelists, the moderator of the panel sessions. Let me mention Chief Kasali Soyaolu Ilelabewu Abinamis, and thank you for your contribution to this discussion. You are welcome. The media team are there around, the security personnel, the very broad-chested individuals in black. I refuse to be intimidated by you. No. I am working, There's somebody we often not mention when we talk about this like this, and the gentleman beside me, the so brilliant beauty this day. Please join your hand in a father day celebration. Thank you very much. Black shirted, beautiful ladies in our midst who are doing a lot of activities. Those are the beautiful ushers. Where are they? Beautiful ushers. Can you please come? Oh, are they hiding now? Please, let them come, let them come. Please jam your hand as they walk in. Please, some of you need to look back. Where are the rest of you? Please come forward, come forward, come forward. Oh, can you see what I'm saying? And it's you, the more. And let's have a time. Aren't they beautiful? Aren't they gorgeous? Having come out to this occasion. Oh, you even have applause from the IT. Please walk majestically backwards. This year we need to go know. Okay. The sound engineers, I think these are sound engineers with a difference. Is it not so? Please give us some of those music. Let us kill you now. That's how I noticed that there are so many things being passed around. Look at those bags, those here, for you to know the people behind the provost and medical director, sir. I present to you these wonderful men and women who have put together this program, and today we are very proud of them. Please help me appreciate them, sir. And finally, okay, please go and get that provost handshake. I am part of it, sir. Very handsome man. He's very cool and calm. One of the attributes that he possesses is the ability to remain calm in the face of provocation. Some of us are not gifted that way at all. If you do anyhow, we will just give it to you. And we used to pride ourselves that I don't have capacity to hold grudges, so I'll give it to you immediately. Is that a sign of something? So, I don't want to keep you waiting for too long. Please let me appreciate the provost director, Dr. Peace, Akoni, for his great support. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone. God bless.
So let's a round of applause for the local organizing committee chairman. You know, I said earlier that if you are not being a concerned psychiatrist, you would have been a humorist or a thespian or a comedian. And now you agree with me, yes or no? Please take your seat and clap for yourself. Shall we please sit down? Please, let's sit down. We are closing now. Please, let's sit down. Let's sit down. Please. Let's sit down. Please, let's sit down. We still have one more thing to go. Please, let's sit down. Please. Let me introduce the secretary of now, Aro chapter. Where are you, sir? Comrade Oluwalegon. Isoweto. I want you to know, Isoweto. Okay. You know, three organizations have come together to organize this program, and we've had three people from Orthodox background. We've had from the church, the mosque, and Isheshe. So we'll round up by saying one hallelujah, and then the second one will be Kakolu Atobi, Allahu Akbar. Give it up. Anyway. So let's start with
members and fellows of the Nigerian Institute of Management, who are almost there.
The third one, anyway. Thank you so much for coming with us at the beginning. Definitely as an ending. You have come to the end of this program. Thank you. Safe trip back.
Okay.